circulation.
Oh, they're all from out of town. I do have a moment of silence. Oh, yes, okay. Thank you. Reader's going to move this, bring the motion up. You can study it to death, it's fine, these people. Good evening. Can we please rise for the prayer? Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Please salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
Under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Counsel Milonazo.
Here.
Counsel Rourke.
Here.
Counsel Samaras.
Here.
Counsel Belanger.
Here.
Mayor Elliott.
Here.
Counsel Kennedy.
Here.
Counsel Leahy.
Here.
Counsel Martin.
Here.
Counsel Mercia.
Here.
9 present.
9 present. Chair would like to recognize Council Milonazo.
Thank you, Mayor Elliott. I'd like to offer a moment of silence in darkened chambers for Beatrice Zwicker, a wonderful woman who passed away a week or so ago. She was a devoted wife, mother, and grandmother. Bea was married to the late Lieutenant Borden Zwicker from the Lowell Police Department. She's survived by 2 sons, Borden Zwicker Jr., who's currently in the Lowell Police Department, and Kurt Zwicker and his wife Diane, both of Lowell. She was a wonderful woman, and she'd be missed by her family and friends. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Council Milonazo. All set. Can we all please rise with darkened chambers and a moment of silence. They rest in peace. Before we begin on the agenda this evening, I'd just like to make an announcement, if there's no objection from members of the council. Mr. Connor Baldwin, our City Hall employee, asked that we read the following announcement that this Saturday, May 3rd, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., please stop by the Burmese Food Fair at the Calvary Baptist Church, 60 Hastings Street in Lowell. You're entitled to free sampling of Southeastern Asian cuisine. Admission is free, but you can purchase dishes for $3 to $6. All the proceeds will benefit CDNR Community Development Incorporated. They provide services to Burmese refugees living in Lowell, and they work together to help each other become successful and self-sufficient participants in American society while celebrating their rich cultural heritage. So that's this Saturday, May 3rd, 11 to 3, at the Calvary Baptist Church. Right? Thank you. Councilor Marcia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In light of the fact that we have a full house here this evening, probably all these people here have left their bicycles outside, and they would probably want to talk about the bike lanes that we have a dual motion. So if there's no objection, I'd like to take a motion out of order so that these people don't have to be here all night long. 9.7 on the agenda, if there's no objection.
Second.
Okay.
I object.
Okay.
I actually think we should do the mayor's business first, and then we could proceed with that.
Okay. I'll say, Council. There's just a couple of proclamations, I think. Well, there was a motion by Council Malinazzo. Was there a second on the motion by Council Malinazzo? Or a second withdrawn? Council Malinazzo, can we just proceed? Okay. Council Mercia. So back to the mayor's agenda. Before suspending the rules, there is a item 1.1. It's a proclamation. Steve Conant? Steve here? Hello, Steve. Welcome. It's a proclamation to Steve Conant. He's a board member of the Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust, recognizing Arbor Day. Welcome, Mr. Conant. On behalf of the City of Lowell, we're happy to celebrate and issue this proclamation on Arbor Day. I was pleased to participate with Jane Calvin on Earth Day in an Arbor Day event, and it's an honor and a privilege to present this to you and Parks and Conservation Trust. City of Lowell, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, by His Honor Rodney M. Elliott, the Mayor, a proclamation. Whereas Arbor Day is recognized across our nation and Commonwealth, it is celebrated by the planting of trees as a reminder that all citizens bear responsibility for environmental stewardship. And whereas trees can accommodate moderate temperature, cutting heat and cooling costs, cleaning the air, producing a habitat for wildlife. They increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our communities. And whereas trees bring joy and spiritual renewal everywhere they are planted. Through the cooperation of all residents of Lowell, the Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust Urban Forestry Program, the Community Development Block Grant Program, and the City of Lowell, we pass on an endearing heritage of a vital natural resources to succeeding generations. Now, therefore, I, Rodney M. Elliott, Mayor of the City of Lowell, Massachusetts, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, April 22nd, as 2014 as Arbor Day in Lowell. We encourage all citizens to join in this celebration. This was handed out, but it's given to me, given this day, 29th of April, 2014, on behalf of all my colleagues in government and on behalf of 106,000 people in the City of Lowell. We thank you and congratulations.
Mayor Elliott, thank you very much. This is really a congratulations to the city as well, because the tree planting in this city does not happen without the help of the City of Lowell and a strong partnership that we've had through the Community Development Block Grant. Back in 1995, the Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust had a goal of 2,000 by 2,000. I'm happy to say that at this point, we've probably planted over 5,000 trees in the city, again, with the close cooperation of the city through the Community Development Block Grant. So I want to thank you very much for this honor, and happy Arbor Day.
Thank you, we appreciate it. Second item on the agenda, Mr. Conant, regarding a whitewater rafting on the Concord River. Could you provide us a little update on
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor, and I know that the city manager has participated. I know that Councilor Martin has participated, and I know that you this past weekend participated, and we had wonderful coverage in the Lowell Sun, but also the Boston Globe found out that we exist as well. We've been offering through the Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust whitewater rafting actually since 1988, over 25 years, and in that time period, we have taken well over 5,000 people down the whitewater of the Concord River. If about 10% of that group is folks who live in the city of Lowell, how many people have ever done it before? Well, we've got a lot more recruiting to do. How many people knew it existed? That's a little better. But that other 90% are people who come to Lowell, make Lowell a destination city. And so we're happy to offer this program. The Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust does not make a great deal of revenue. It's really about introducing people to the river, to what it has to offer, to what this city has to offer. It's part of the Concord River Greenway that we've been working on, again, in close cooperation with the city, the state, and federal government to make that happen and really turn what had been a hidden jewel, the Concord River, into our front door. So thank you again for the participation and recognition, and please come rafting with us. It's a great year.
Conant, before we let you go, the name of how can folks find out about the White River rafting?
It's we work in cooperation with a group called Zor Outdoor, based out of Charlemont, Massachusetts. But you can also find us on our website at lowelllandtrust.org, and there's a link to that there.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Motion to accept the communication and place on file by Council Martin, seconded by Council Leahy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, under the mayor's business, is a communication discussing the city auditor search. Thought it was important that the deadline had closed on last week, 23rd, and moving forward, I know we haven't discussed specifically the process, but I thought I'd bring this item forward for discussion to see if the council wanted to continue with the same process, submit names to the clerk's office, and have the clerk tally them, and proceed with getting some dates for interviews and having the human resources director contact them. So what is the wish of the body? Council Mercia, then Council Martin.
Mr. Mayor, I understand that we got an extra person that submitted an application. So in conjunction with that, I'd like to make a motion to open the advertisement up for another week. See if we could get any more people.
Okay, motion by Council Mercia to keep the search open for another week.
Yeah,
Second?
I agree, but I thought we already said it's open until, didn't we already say it's open? Even though that we had a closing date? I thought that was,
Ms. Callery, do you second on Council Mercia's motion?
yeah, it's my understanding that it's open until we interview. I thought that's how we left it
Ms.
2
Callery?
weeks ago.
Thought the
No,
deadline,
we had a deadline of April 23rd on there.
And then somebody at the meeting said, keep the posting open or something. No? Well, that was my,
there was discussion, but the motion was to close the date on the 23rd and then proceed with the process at that point. Council Martin?
I have no objection to keeping it open another week, but I was going to move that we just use the same process as last time. But if we want to wait another week and then maybe submit our choices by, I guess, then the end of next week.
Sure.
Okay. Motion to keep the search process open for another week by Council Mercia, seconded by Councilor Leahy did second it, but Council Kennedy?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, keeping it open another week is is fine with me as well. It's just that I'm a little bit concerned because the last time, maybe we put this search on the back burner because of the city manager search, but it seemed like one after another, the candidates got other positions. And I wouldn't want the same thing to happen this time around so that we had to do the process a third time. So it seems to me that it would be okay to keep it open another week, but maybe we could move ahead with the interviews anyways. And if we get a sixth person that comes in, I'm not sure that we're gonna get any people in another week, but if we get somebody in that's really good and everybody wants to interview that person, then let's do that. But while we're waiting, these people they're looking elsewhere for employment as well, and it could be that we miss out a second time if we just wait.
Maker of the motion?
My motion stands, and the reason I'm doing it is because someone that I think is reputable submitted an application, and in order to include that person, I think that to extend it for another week would be the appropriate thing to do. Maybe we'll get more people. I don't know that, but
Further discussion on the motion?
Mayor.
Council Belanger?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm agreeing with my colleagues. I don't have concern with keeping it open another week. So it ended on the 23rd, am I correct, Mrs. Callery? So we're talking, it ends tomorrow. Is that a fair assessment? It would end tomorrow?
If you want the week to go from the 23rd, then yes.
Okay, all right. I just want a point of clarification. We're not going another week from today. So, all right, it ends tomorrow at 5 o'clock, say.
Can I just make a suggestion, and it's certainly up to the body? Out of the 11 candidates, if you feel as though that some are not qualified for the position, then you can look at the late applicants. So if we're going to leave it open till tomorrow, that's fine, but you really wouldn't have to.
Okay.
Okay, thank
the
you.
purpose of the motion, Mr. Mayor, was to include that last person. If there's no objection, then I won't keep it open another minute. I'd just like to include that last
Are
person.
there
that-
any other resumes, Madam, Ms. Gallery? There are no other resumes, okay? Council Kennedy?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I evidently misunderstood the purpose of the motion. I thought it meant to keep it open another week going forward. I'm maybe a little bit ahead of everybody else because I've already submitted my 5 selections to the clerk. And actually, one of my 5 is the person that submitted the late resume, so.
Well, I'm just trying to justify to have this last person be included, that's all.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion to, do you need a roll call?
Well,
All those in favor,
just
Council Martin?
so that so maybe then we could have the submission, our
Right.
choices this week, not
Right,
next Friday.
right,
I
right.
was going to dispose with that one and then go to yours, how's that? Motion to extend the deadline till tomorrow. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries. Council Martin?
So I'd move that we follow the same process as last time, get our tops at no more than 5 selections to the clerk by the end of this week, Friday, 5 p.m., and he would tally and report back to us on Tuesday.
Okay.
And we can start to schedule the interviews.
Motion by Council Martin, seconded by Council Kennedy, to use the same format, same process that we did with the prior auditor search process. All names to be submitted by 5 o'clock on Friday to the city clerk. And then clerk will tally the results, report back to the city council once those results are done. Discussion? All those, Council Samaras?
Just question, how soon will we begin the interviews? Could we think of doing it starting next week? I think when Council Kennedy brought up the issue of, where these are candidates looking for positions, and there are some that seem to be very qualified, I would not want to lose them at this point, so is it possible to?
Why don't we dispose of the last motion, and then we'll move on to the next one?
Thank you.
All right, and I think that's a good point. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries. Council Samaras, you want to make that in the form of a motion that we
Yes.
proceed next week?
Motion that we proceed with the interviews for next week. If we could set up a day starting Wednesday or Thursday, possible.
Members have particular dates they want to suggest? Council Rourke?
My only concern, Mr. Mayor, is that the clerk won't know, or we won't know who the top 5 are until Friday afternoon, Saturday morning. And 2 or 3 days might be a short lead time to getting applicants in here. That's my concern.
Do we want to try for start interviews next Wednesday or Thursday? Does that get enough time? Because the top number of candidates, the top tier of candidates can be contacted. But just throwing it out there.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, Wednesday.
I
Okay? Council Martin?
think I think we're gonna have to check schedules and things. I mean, I think Thursday's probably okay for me. I don't think Wednesday is.
How about Thursday? Thursday work for members? Thursday? Thursday, all right? We'll scratch Wednesday. Okay?
What's that?
How many do we want to do per evening?
2.
3?
Mr. Mayor, we did 2 on the manager's search.
Two?
I don't expect this to be a lengthy interview as the manager's interviews one, so I think we can handle 3 in an evening.
Okay, entertain a
opinion.
motion then to do 3 per evening by Council Belanger. Second?
Second.
Second by Council Martin. All those in favor signify by saying aye. And the opposed? Motion carries. Anything else, Ms. Callery? What time do we want to start them? 6 PM? 5:30?
6.
6.
6. Include that in the motion, Mr. Clerk. Okay, further discussion? Okay, I think we're all set on the mayor.
Mr.
Council Mercia?
Mr. Mayor, how long are the interviews apiece? They're not 90 minutes like the city manager. Would it be an hour
I think
each?
an hour maximum.
We got to give an opening statement, 5 minutes opening, 5 minutes closing, and an hour, instead of 90 minutes, an hour.
I think we're looking at probably about an hour for an interview. I don't think it'll be as exhaustive as a city manager. Objection to that?
Does the 5 minutes before and the 5 minutes after be included in that hour?
Yes.
Maybe they could be
Yes.
included in that hour.
Right.
Instead of saying an hour plus 10 minutes.
Right.
Okay, so that's fine.
Okay. Further questions? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Council Mercia is under suspension. That concludes the mayor's business. You want to
Under the suspension of the rules, I'd like to take up our dual motion.
Okay, motion to suspend the rules by Council Mercia, second by Council Rourke. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
9.7. Does someone want to read it?
Yep. Nine point seven, Mayor Elliott and Council Mercia request City Council vote to revert Father Morissette Boulevard back to a 4-lane traffic thoroughway and remove bike lanes. No second necessary. Council Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe there's probably maybe, I don't know, 40 people here tonight that would probably want to speak on this motion, but we just passed rule number 38, which, whatever, says that we could speak, or the public could speak, and I'm not going to deny them from speaking. And I know that we have a dual motion, but sometimes we make a motion so that we can see and more or less shock people to see how is there anybody out there that actually travels down that Father Morissette Boulevard? I remember many years ago growing up in that neighborhood, and that was called Ford Street Hill. And they used to close it off in the winter so that we could sled down, and we had a nice time in that neighborhood. And today it's Father Morissette Boulevard. It's a very, very wide. We had talked about it before, and we referred it to the superintendent of police, William Taylor, and we did get a response back. And this is what he says, and I quote, "What has become apparent is that the markings are confusing to many motorists due to the width of the roadway. speaking about the width of the roadway, absolutely true. I think in one of those lanes, you could get a Sherman tank coming down that roadway and with no problem whatsoever. One of which has a bicycle lane within it. However, the bicycle lanes which are designed, it's almost, the configuration as it is now marked gives the appearance that there are 2 driving lanes. So having said that, to revert back to the way that it was would then eliminate the bicycle lanes. And I want to state for the record and preface my remarks by saying I have no problem with bicyclists. I think they belong in the city. I commend them for the fact that they are taking less emissions out of the city by the fact that they want to travel down the road with a bicycle. I think it's good exercise. I think it's the way to go. I think the winter was here and I didn't see anybody there. I'm not saying that I'm happy with the way that it is now. I think the way that it is, I voted in such a way that I made a mistake, because to have it look like that is not something that I wanted to see. It's very confusing. People are saying we need enforcement there. If the area was reconfigured correctly, we wouldn't need enforcement there. People are being warned, people are being ticketed, people are being, there's near fatal, crashes happening there. I would just say that I know that, Mr. Mayor, you have your own opinion. I know we more or less thought about this together. I know that you probably have a different opinion than me. I came on board with yours because I did it as a shock factor. I want to know how many of these people have a bicycle that travel down that road every day. Well, that's wonderful, because I have never, ever seen a bicyclist coming down. So that's why I was happy to make this motion along with the mayor, just so I could see for myself and meet the actual people that are coming down that lane, because I've never seen anybody, to tell you the truth. Now that you're telling me you do, I believe you. And I would like to amend, well, I don't know, you can do what you want, Mr. Mayor, but I would amend it to refer it back to the city manager, to have the DPD take another look at it, and perhaps have a bicycle lane, but not in the width of a Sherman tank coming down there, because it's very, very confusing. I'm not just saying it, the superintendent of police is saying it. The way that it is now, I personally feel it's a mistake. It's a mistake because it's not reconfigured right. So, having said that, I would amend portion of my motion to say to refer it back to the city manager, because I firmly believe that in this city, I may not like something and someone else may like it, but I honestly believe that there's a compromise that can take place so that we have the best of both worlds, because I actually believe that people that are riding their bike, whether you're going to school, to class, to work, I think it's a good thing. Maybe I don't see you in the winter. Maybe I'll see a lot of you this spring, but I don't want you to get hurt. I don't want you to be in a near-miss fatal accident with a car. I really don't want to see someone cut you off or someone use that bicycle lane as a lane of travel. And I think the way that it is situated now, I think it's an accident waiting to happen. And I know of an accident that did take place there, because someone went to take a right onto Arcan Drive and didn't realize that a car was coming down the bicycle lane. I think it should be restructured again so that we're safe here in the city. And that's my opinion. I know that if we didn't make it the way that it was, probably nobody would be here. But the way that we said we were going to eliminate it, I'm glad I got you all here tonight. I'm happy to see that. And if people want to speak now, that's fine, but I don't want you to think that I don't appreciate you and I don't want you in this city. I do. I just don't want the way that it's structured to be the way that it is. Something's not right here. I made a mistake. I think that we can correct it. And that's my opinion, but I don't know how you feel, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councilor Lay, can you Could you take the podium, please?
Mayor Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. These bike lanes have been in place for approximately 9 months now, and with the exception of seeing cyclists here, I haven't seen one since they've been in place since last August. That doesn't mean that I'm there all the time, nor do I think they're not being used very infrequently. I'm not opposed to cyclists. People can cycle in the city. Clearly, we want them to cycle in the city. I filed a motion a number of years ago to put, a couple of bike racks downtown because people called me on it. I thank all the individuals. We sent many emails. I know that, there was something tweeted out and put on Facebook regarding this issue, and I do appreciate your input. Work for all the people in the city. But I also am bringing a message from people that support me and that see me and that ask me to do something about the bike lanes. That they're a safety issue. They're clearly underutilized, if utilized at all. And that's why I filed the motion and spoke to Councilor Mercy on it. Not because we don't want people in the city. It's a safety issue. I also think it was a plan that was rolled out poorly. People in the city didn't expect it. Some roads, bikes are allowed to drive their bikes right down the middle of the road. Major thoroughfares, Merrimack Street, Westford Street. The culture in the city is not as such that people are accustomed to having bicycles ride down the middle of the streets. We raise our kids to stay out of the streets. Don't ride your bike in the middle of the street. So drivers have enough distractions, and bicycles are clearly they can travel the roadways. This particular plan is very, very confusing. There were construction barrels down the middle of these roads when it was rolled out. Construction barrels. People in the city do not know what to do, and that's why I filed the motion to get rid of them. Not because we don't appreciate anyone riding their bicycle in the city. Was it a mistake? Yes, it was. It was $30,000 of taxpayer money. We can't paint sidewalks and stripe lines in the streets. Maybe we should have looked at those. That being said, maybe bike lanes are better in some parts of the country. You can barely use them 5 months here. That doesn't mean, again, people can't come and take their bikes in the city. So I'm all for sending this back to the manager to have another study. I think the people have studied it for 9 months, and they have safety issues and concerns, and there are traffic congestion issues. Ask someone that travels there every day. So I will support the amendment or change to send it to the city manager. Because I don't oppose compromise at all whatsoever, but if there's a safety issue to this and it's not the right place in that city, then it doesn't belong there. And I understand, this spec report, recommends cycling and walkability. That's all good. Lowell's a green community. I supported those initiatives, but sometimes what does an urban planner know about the city when he spends less than a month here? I mean, we run the city. The city councilors do. The people run the city, and we carry their message, their voice for them, and that's what I did. So, I understand. We'll look at this. We'll take another look at it, but I didn't think chickens were a good idea the last time either, and I stand firm on that. So sometimes cities are all different. Some things work for, Cambridge or Somerville, but they may not work in Lowell. Doesn't mean we're bad people or we're trying to take a step backward. This city moves forward every single day by those that are born, raised, and will die here, and will continue to want to make the city a better place to live. And just because we have concerns about safety doesn't mean that we're taking a step backwards. In fact, I think we're moving a step forward, knowing the traffic congestion, traffic patterns, and safety issues in the city, and that's the only purpose why, that's the reason why I brought it forward. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. And Councilor Samaras?
On the motion, I can understand the frustration that the mayor is talking about. When I first saw the bike trail on Father Morrisette Boulevard, it was very confusing and to me, potentially very dangerous. But bike paths are now becoming the part of the fabric of every city in our country. It's just like we gave away to green space, or we've given green space away. We have gardens in our cities now. There are changes that are happening to meet the needs of the different people that take part or live in the city, especially now that we have people living in the downtown and working in the outskirts. I do have some overall concerns about the design. I think the design was poor. But I think that we really have to look at a master plan on what are we going to do about biking. Biking is here. Now that we've acknowledged that, how do we want it to look like? What do we want it to look like in our city? I'm concerned about pedestrian safety. If you go to some other communities, I mean, one of the concerns that they'll have is that the safety of people walking on crosswalks and bikers not stopping. With mine cars, I mean, so the number of injuries that happen. But I want to look at things in a positive way. I just want to make sure whatever we do it and make it as safe as possible for the bikers, for the pedestrians on the sidewalk, and people driving their cars, not to be involved in any type of accident. I think, though, we need a master plan, and what I'd like to do, make another amendment to the amendment in the sense of, rather than just send it back to the city manager, I'd like to send this to the subcommittee on transportation and have them work with the city manager in looking at the possibility of developing a master plan on what will bike paths look like in Lowell, and what do we have to do to make it work, and to actually maybe study what other cities have done where it's obvious where the bike paths are, but not a design like we have on Father Morrisette Boulevard. So I'd like to, if the makers of the motion would allow for, rather than going straight to the city manager, go to the subcommittee on transportation and have the subcommittee on transportation work with the city manager, over this issue. Thank you.
Councilor Brooke first.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I agree with Councilor Samaras as far as the design goes. I think the design stinks, especially with regards to Cabot Street, Aiken Street, and then, as Councilor Mercia said, the right turn on Arcan Drive. It is a dangerous situation. That being said, I also agree with Councilor Samaras that a plan should be put in place citywide to encourage cycling. I think as far as Father Morrisette goes, going to the city manager that can discuss this with the engineering department, I think is a good idea. They can bring it back to us for a vote on it. Any tweaking that can be done should be encouraged, and hopefully, as the mayor has stated, a compromise can be made to this potentially a very dangerous roadway. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilor Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think for many of us that were on the city council when this was voted on, which I believe it was last February, this was part of a $2 million loan order that really was tied into the parking spaces along both sides of Father Morrisette Boulevard. And I think really the primary goal was those parking spaces and the revenue that could be generated from those parking spaces, and that the bike lane was really secondary. Secondary in this way, was that the street, and I believe this to be the case, that the street is wide enough for 2 lanes of traffic. But if you're going to have parking on both sides of the street, then it becomes, the 2 lanes would be very, very tight. And because the 2 lanes are so tight, that creates a safety situation. And so you're left with this open space. If you have 1 lane and then the parking, then you've got this other space, and what do you do with it? And so that, I believe, is where the bike lane comes from. Now, some people might think the bike lane is a bad idea. Some people might think, at least the way those parking spaces have performed to date, that the parking spaces were a bad idea. But the bike lane may only have cost $30,000, but the parking spaces cost a lot of money. And so I think that if we're going to do away with the bike lane, if we're going to keep the parking, what are we going to do with, it's not going to make 2 lanes. So why not have the bike lane there and just redo it? If, on the other hand, we're going to do away with the parking, then there's room for 2 lanes, and then where the cars park now would be room for a bike lane, so there can be a bike lane in that instance as well. Now, I think most of us are aware that the city manager is right now negotiating with the university for the lease of most of those spaces. So although yesterday afternoon at about 4 o'clock, only a half a dozen of the spaces were being utilized along the whole length of Father Morissette, the university could end up utilizing all of those spaces. So I think, and if they do, there won't be, I don't believe there's going to be room for 2 lanes. And so if there's not room for 2 lanes, then what are we going to do with the space that the bike lane is occupying now? And I also think that probably when you're coming down Father Morissette visually, because there are no cars parked in the parking space, that it looks like the bike lane's just taking up one heck of a lot of room. I think that we've had it since August, that maybe the utilization for the bike lanes or the parking spaces hasn't been that great, but it's really, if we're going to give the bike lane a fair chance, we have to allow for the summertime. You can't just do it and have it 80% of the time that we've given it a trial has been winter time, and then say nobody's using the bike lane. When actually probably not that many people are using bikes all winter long. And so I'm in favor of sending it back to the Division of Planning and Development. I think that this can be reworked, but I don't think that, I think in any event, we're going to end up with a bike lane on Father Morissette Boulevard. I just don't really see, unless we go back to no parking and no bike lane and then have 4 lanes of traffic. But many of us will recall that when we had this debate last year, the Division of Planning and Development asserted that we didn't need the 2 lanes going each way, that there really wasn't enough volume of traffic to create that. And so that's how I feel about it. I think that really the bike lane needs to have more of a chance. It needs to have a whole summertime before we do anything. And so to send it back to the city manager's office and have them take a look at it, and maybe we could do a much better job, and maybe we should have done a much better job back in the fall about educating people as to what the bike lane was for, and who could ride in the bike lane, who couldn't ride in the bike lane, and so forth and so on. And so maybe some additional signage and some a little tune-up of the way that we handle that whole area would be beneficial to everybody.
Thank you. Council Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. For starters, this council had received approximately 40 to 50 emails on this issue from mostly supporters of this, bicyclists and whatnot throughout the city, and all made some excellent arguments on this issue, and all opinions were conveyed in a respectful manner. So I do thank them for their input on this issue, and I heard them loud and clear. Thank you very much. But this motion was put in front of the council for a reason. It's been seriously underutilized. Now, I wasn't on the council last year. I did not vote for this, but I'm by there on most days, sometimes twice a day. I have not seen a cyclist, or I cannot count even more than a handful of vehicles that have been on that street, on that their parking. So to this point, I'm not liking what I'm seeing to this point. I don't think that can be argued, no matter what side you're on. It has been underutilized on both ends over there. I know it's way early, but to this point, we cannot be pleased with what we've seen. But there are safety issues there. That's one reason why it's here. Is very, very confusing. I had a near miss Friday afternoon, wanting to take a right on Cabot Street. Somebody snuck up from the bicycle lane. I had to stop from taking my right. I was going to collide with this individual. He in turn looks at me with his hands up in the air like I'm in the wrong when he came all the way up the bike lane. So we need some serious safety issues there addressed sooner rather than later. I'm not saying it can't work. I think it can. But to this point, again, it just has not been a good experience. That's why this is here. I understand it's only been 9 months in the making. The good weather is hopefully coming soon. So let's see what activity we can drum up there. The reason for this initiative was the outcry from Warner Lancet businesses supposedly needed extra parking. That hasn't worked out. So let's hope the university comes to our rescue here and you know, gobbles up some of these spaces. That will help this. If there's cars parked where the meters are, that will end some of the confusion. That's part of the problem. There's a parking lane and a bicycle lane that are not being used. So what are vehicles to do? They've been driving in it. That's what's going on. So we need better enforcement there, better outreach for starters, and that needs to happen sooner rather than later. But, you know, I'm seeing today, I'm seeing a lot more bicycles on sidewalks downtown than I am on these bike lanes. And I think that's another issue. That needs to be looked at. We need enforcement downtown with bicycles on sidewalks. It is rampant. So that needs to be looked at, but that's an issue for another day. So I am willing to send this to the manager and work with planning and development and the police to button this up a little bit better. I don't think it was planned all that well, to be honest with you, but I think it can be fixed, and it can work. So let's give it a chance. I'm willing to do that, to give it time before I sit here and make a decision hastily. In a nutshell, let's give it a little more time, if you will. I know the frustration on this council is we're not pleased with what we've seen. So maybe time will rectify the situation when other things come into play, events happen in the area. We'll see if this comes into fruition. But I think it's fair that we give a little more time at the same time. So thank you very much, Mr. Vice Mayor. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilman
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. It was noted that we had received a report from Superintendent Taylor regarding the bike lane, and that was actually in regards to a motion I had filed looking to determine what the citation was or the fine was for driving in the bike lane. He reported back that it's $100, but he also reported, as Councilor Mercia indicated, that in his opinion, from a safety standpoint, that there should be some realignment, if you will. So I will support sending this back to the city manager. I travel back and forth probably 5 or 6 times a day, and I have seen bicyclists in the bike lane, but I've also seen cars in the bike lane. So I do think it's a safety issue. I certainly appreciate all of the emails that we received in support of this. I do think it comes back to a quality of life issue and working with the residents, with the university students. I think the bike lane should remain, but I do think there can be a reconfiguration, if you will. We received one email that talked about in some communities the bike lanes are actually painted green, I believe, just to make sure that the drivers know that those are bike lanes and they really are reserved for bicyclists. So I'll support sending it back, and I do think that they ultimately should remain, maybe a different configuration, but from a standpoint of safety, I think it's in the best interest of the council to send it back to the manager for further review. Thank you.
Councilor Martin, and then Councilor Mercia.
All right, thank you. I support the motion as revised. I just want, and I know, I appreciate a lot of people are down here and appreciate their interest in the emails we got and various correspondence. And one thing I wanted to point out, this magazine we all get here, the Municipal Advocate, the last issue of it was dedicated to economic development. and it talks a lot about strategies for cities like Lowell. There's a high-profile piece about Marlboro, because Marlboro had more business absorption into existing space last year than any other city other than Boston, something that I think we are striving to do here. They had some big hits. They had TJX, they had Quest, they had others. But in that article that we all get here, one of the things that it says that businesses are looking for, it says in the article, another recurring theme from some company executives is the desire for more walking and bicycle trails for their employees. So it's an economic development strategy, and I know we all got a letter from the university too. They've put some investment into bicyclists. I think, if you go to the UMass Amherst campus, there are bikes everywhere. This is different than that. This is a city, but they're trying to do the best for their students too. And I shudder to think where we would be without the university over the last few years. So I think, while I don't view this exclusively as a university issue, I think their opinion should be considered here. And they've asked us to proceed cautiously on this issue. So I appreciate the efforts. I understand the sentiments behind the motion too, because I too have been confused down there as to even what's appropriate and what isn't behavior. So there is a learning curve here. There is a learning curve. I think citizens need to be educated. Bicyclists need to feel that they're going to be protected when they use these areas. But if we're going to try and attract development to that area, and that's one of the areas in the city that's actually been more successful than most at attracting new development, I think this needs to be part of our strategy. So I agree that it could be improved. I agree it could be done better. I think it's worth a fresh look, but I don't think we've given it enough chance to succeed yet. We haven't even been through a full season yet. I think these parking spaces haven't been given enough chance yet. They haven't been through a baseball season yet. We keep hearing from the Lowell Spinners, at least I do, about how tight it is to park around the stadium. So I think added parking in that area is going to help. So I do appreciate everybody's weighing in. I can sense the frustration some residents have with these things. It's new, it's different, it's hard to understand, but I think we can make that better.
Thank you. Councilor Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I want to give this a chance as well, but I want to give it a chance in a safe manner, not in a manner that would add confusion and put people in harm's way. But through you, Mr. Vice Mayor, to the city clerk, do we have anybody registered to speak?
We do, Counselor.
Okay, then let's proceed. Thank you.
Could I just switch off and just add one comment, and then we'll go to the public?
Council Leahy?
Thank you. I just wanted to add that I think that the situation needs a little bit more time to be assessed and make sure we get through a whole season to see how the bike lanes work. I travel up that way myself, and although I don't notice too many bicyclists, I do feel that parking in the area of Wanalancet is a lot better. I see parking on the opposite side, say where the University Crossing is, that side, I see that parking being utilized a little bit more. So I'm in favor of giving it more time. I don't mind if the manager's office looks at it again. And I guess the lines can be a little bit confusing. That the white line where the vehicles are and where the bicyclists start, maybe that's a little wide, I don't know, but I'd like to give it a chance to see. I think the area works pretty well right now, and I'd like to see what happens with the baseball season as far as parking, because I think that'll be a key issue for the ball field. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Mr. Geary, registered speakers?
Paul Marion.
I'm Paul Marion. I live at 44 Highland Street. I'm also the Director of Community Relations at UMass Lowell. There's a lot of people here tonight, so I'm not going to read the full statement that the university sent to all the counselors. You all have it. I would say we're very much in line with where I hear the conversation going. We were basically going to ask for a kind of timeout, to look further, study a little bit more, observe, allow for a couple of things to come into play, including the completion of University Crossing. We'll be occupying that building fully, by August and opening in September. We are in negotiations with the city to obtain a number of those spots on the upper end of Father Morissette. And as a number of the counselors said, we haven't seen a summer yet with the bikes. Our student trustee, Philip Jeffroy, wasn't able to be here tonight, but he sent a message online to the counselors and the city manager, I think reflecting the view of a lot of the students. He's a very avid bike rider himself. So I think the conversation is going in the direction that we hoped, and anything that we can do to assist in the review or sort of reassessment of the plan, we're happy to do. We agree that some physical revisions could make things better for drivers and for bicyclists as well. But we'd like to give it a more chance. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Marion.
Excuse me. Dan McNeil.
My name is Dan McNeil, and I have been a taxpayer in Lowell for 17 years. I was not fortunate enough to be born in Lowell, but I did choose to live here. We chose to live here 17 years ago because we thought the city of Lowell was a progressive place, a place that would become walkable, a place with some diversity. I am also a cyclist, and it is my exclusive mode of transportation. My eyesight is such that I'm not really equipped to drive a car, so I am cycling pretty much year-round. When I worked in Billerica, I cycled to Billerica 9 miles through the snow. I do use the bike lane on Father Morissette, and I am grateful to Mayor Elliott and Councilor Mercier for their motion, because I believe the net effect will be to improve safety. I was a little disturbed at the prospect of eliminating the bicycle lane as a taxpayer, because from conversation with acquaintances in the State Department of Transportation and a little time with Dr. Google this afternoon, it's my understanding that funding from the Massachusetts Department of Transportation and the Federal Department of Transportation requires compliance with a complete streets approach, and that eliminating a bike lane is perhaps not the best way to signal this compliance. So again, thank you to Mayor Elliott and to Council Mercier, especially to Council Mercier for her courtesy in moving this up towards the beginning of the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. McNeil.
Marion Grease.
Good evening. My name is Marianne Grease, and I live at 41 Buttman Road in Lowell. I, like Dan, was not fortunate enough to be born in Lowell, but I think you should take that up with my parents, because I'm the one who chose to live here. I'm also a year-round cyclist. I bike from my home to my job downtown. I do use the bike lanes on Father Morissette Boulevard, and I would love to see them stay in place. And I also noticed yesterday that MassDOT actually released funding to 12 communities to provide enforcement education and infrastructure, and I would love to see Lowell get some of that money so that we can continue moving forward with bike lanes, and I'd hate for us to miss out on money, because I work for nonprofits and I know what it's like to chase money. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Laura McNeil.
I'm Laura McNeil. I live at 200 Market Street, wife of Dan McNeil. We also organize a very loose bicycling group in Lowell. We call it the Lowell Friendly Bike Rides because we feel Lowell is a friendly place to cycle. A group of us usually starts from downtown and cycles to the Bruce Freeman Trail. Since the bicycle lane on Chelmsford Street was added, we all feel much safer and more visible getting to the Freeman Trail. And I feel that while the bike lane over on Father Morrisette Boulevard is not as good, it's well designed and probably does need to be looked at, it will provide that same type of safety and security for bicycle riders on busy streets that are highly trafficked by cars. But there are many people that do like to ride their bikes. That is a good thoroughfare to get through to other parts outside the city, bicycle through Dracup and some of the more open areas where it's also beautiful, allow students to be able to move back and forth between the university and downtown. And I would hate to see bike lanes, any bike lane in Lowell be removed, and hope that the council not only considers revising Father Morrisette Boulevard's bike lane to make it more safe for everyone, but also to consider adding bike lanes and not eliminating them in the city. And one final comment that I would like to make is that as a driver, I see many, many people, low-income people, by my supposition, given the type of bike that they're riding, the type of clothes they wear, riding around because that is their only means of transportation, and I suspect that they would also support more bike lanes in the city.
Thank you, Ms. McNeil.
Charles Arnold.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, City Councilors. My name is Charles Arnold. I live at 58 Prescott Street in Lowell. I have some prepared notes, but I'm going to try to deviate from this a little bit because I've been very encouraged to hear some of what the city councilors have said about not doing away with the bike lane, but rather sending it back to the city engineers to be modified, and I do approve of that. I would like to say a few things, though, in general defense of bike lanes in general. And about 10 years ago, the city of Portland, Oregon, conducted a study in which they found they basically divided people in their attitudes about cycling for transportation into 4 groups. There was a very small group, no more than about 1%. It was very hardcore. They would ride anywhere under any circumstances. There was another group, also fairly small, that was basically comfortable riding in the city, but if they had bike lanes, they'd prefer to use it. It's about 30% that just wouldn't ride anywhere under any circumstances. But that left about 60% of the population that the city was looking at that would ride. They wanted to ride, but they were afraid to ride. And basically, they were afraid to ride in streets because they thought they're going to be hit by cars. And this has been documented over and over again, that the number one reason people don't ride bicycles is they're afraid they're going to be hit by cars. It's that 60% we want to capture. It's that 60% of Lowell residents who could ride from our neighborhoods into the downtown, who the 60% of people who in surrounding towns like Chelmsford, if they felt it was safe to ride from the end of the Bruce Freeman Trail into downtown, would come into town, spend some time, and spend some money. So it's that 60% that I want you to think about when you think about bike lanes. I'm happy if you want to send this back to the city engineer to be tweaked, but don't abandon it. Give it more time, make it work for that 60%. Thank you.
Sidney Lang.
Good evening. I'm going to try to read from here since this is more important in terms not just the bicycle lane, but in healthcare and also in economic development as well, and other things, and also trying to deviate this a little bit. Good evening.
Could we get your name and address, please?
Good evening. First, thank you for allowing me to speak on these important issues. My name is Sidney Liang. I'm residing at 23 Phillips Street and work for Lowell Community Health Center at 161 Jackson Street. I'm here to speak in opposition to the removal of the bike lane on the Father Morrisette Boulevard. As staff of Lowell Community Health Center, I manage a program funded by the Department of Public Health Municipal Wellness Leadership Program, or MASS in Motion in short. The goal of Mass in Motion is to promote opportunity for healthy eating and active living in a place where people live, work, learn, and play. As part of this initiative, we collaborate with diverse coalition and partnership about improving the health of community residents and implement a lot of projects such as the Safe Route to School, so that our children are able to walk and bike to school safely, Complete Street to make sure road and street are accessible and safe for everybody, increase access to healthy food in community and school environment through our Healthy Market and School Nutrition Project. In the last several years, Lowell has made significant strides to improve the city environment to make it easier for our residents to be physically active and lead healthier lifestyles, including adding bicycle lanes and share roads so that pedestrians, cyclists, and car can move easily and safely and sharing the roads. We have the Lincoln, McAuliffe, and Moody School participating in the Safe Route to School programs to encourage students to walk and bike to and from school. Schools such as the Murray, Starklosa are encouraging students to bike and walk to school by providing beautiful bike racks in front of their school and educating them about the importance of being physically active. Even Lowell High School have made bicycle rack available for students just off the boulevard. Those schools recognize how physical activity positively impacts the students through better grades and better scores. The city of Lowell is alive and moving forward. These efforts demonstrate the city's overall commitment to promote health and wellness of all residents of our community, and I strongly encourage the city to continue to invest in the health of our residents. I'm asking to give it a little more time, and I suggest that if the lanes are not being utilized, the city and its partners should including the neighborhood groups, focus on education and promotion. I also ask the councils to establish a bicycle and pedestrian advisory committee to assess these lanes, its structures, usage, and how it continues to work in the city of Lowell to provide more information that will be useful for the councils to make decisions. Lastly, I also suggest that cities should consider adopting the complete street policy for citywide planning and development if we have not done so. Complete street policy is a design concept that considers the need of everybody, including pedestrian, bicyclists, and driver when using the road. I understand that in February and November 2011, there was a motion in this council chamber that asked the city managers to begin looking into formally adopting complete street policy for the city. So complete street will bring us more economic development, increasing healthy neighborhood groups, and increase capacity in state fund to our city. We must keep bringing our city moving forward and not backward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Christopher Hayes.
I'm Christopher Hayes. I live at 100 Mass Mills Drive. I think everybody said pretty much what I could say, but better. But I do want to say that I really support holistically looking at these issues. Pedestrian Bicycle Committee, bicycle plan, those type of things are great things to consider moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes.
Sofan Pin.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for inviting me to speak or allowing me to speak my piece today. Thanks to all the council members for giving some thought to this issue. So yeah, my name's Sapan Pin. People here may know me as an active member of the cycling community here. In fact, maybe some city officials here know me too. I lead a group ride that leaves every Monday right at the doorsteps of City Hall. So if you see a bunch of people outside around 8 o'clock, that's usually a group of friends and I who go out cycling. And we ride the Father Morrisett Trail all the time. So yeah, the thing is, I feel like I'm uniquely positioned for this because, to speak my opinion, because I actually, although I live in Lowell, I work in Cambridge. And before I identify myself as a cyclist, I'm actually a multimodal person in that I bike, but I take the commuter rail to work. and I drive. I own a car, obviously, and I just realized that I'm actually late on my excise taxes. But yeah, so I'm uniquely
You
positioned
didn't have
in
to
that.
tell us that publicly.
So when the issue of the possible removal of the bike lane came about, it made me think to a street adjacent to where I work, which is actually used to be configured much the same way. It had 2 lanes, 4 lanes actually, and 2 bike lanes at the far right and far left end. And to address the traffic problems and the safety issues, what the city of Cambridge did was they actually reversed the position of the bike lane and parking. So the parking spaces are now on the left side of the bike lane, and that provides an actual physical barrier to the cyclists on the right alongside the curb. And they've also addressed any issues of possible run-ins at the intersection by giving a 20 feet buffer zone. So actually cyclists and cars taper, and so they're alongside one another. And I thought this experiment wouldn't work, but it's actually addressed a lot of the safety issues at that street, and it's right off of Kendall Square, right near MIT. So yeah, just about Lowell, to echo Charles's point, in that a lot of people don't bike because they're afraid, but a lot of cyclists who break the law and ride on sidewalks and run through intersections and whatnot do so out of fear. To be quite honest, the cycling infrastructure here is quite lacking, and so people feel like they're better off riding on sidewalks and breaking the rules and actually endangering themselves riding alongside the streets. For me, I obviously get around through other means, but cycling is an absolute choice. And I recognize that when you ride through the city, you meet a lot of different folks, and you realize that for some folks, it is their only means of getting around. And so while it's a choice for me, it's a circumstance for many, and I just hope that we can reconsider removing the lanes so that we don't shut the door on transportation access to everyone in the city. So thank you, and that's all I need to say.
Thank you, Mr. Penn.
Aurora Erickson. Take your time.
Okay, hello. I'm Aurora Erickson. I live at 100 Mass Mills Drive. This is my first year in Lowell, but please do not hold that against me. I love Lowell. I care a lot about it. So I don't bike, but I want to talk about Father Morissette from my perspective as a driver and a pedestrian. So sort of just set aside for a moment the issue of bike lanes. I want to ask the question, is Father Morissette a better street for everyone with 2 lanes or with 4? I've never, as a driver, had any problem zipping along 2-lane Father Morissette towards my destination. I don't really think the street gets enough traffic to justify 4 lanes, and I suspect that any minor traffic hiccups that occur along that street are the fault of other problem areas radiating inward. I don't see much point as a driver in being able to zoom along Father Morissette only to end up grinding into one of the choke points along Bridge Street. It doesn't matter if it takes you 1 minute or 2 minutes to get from point A to point B, if it takes you another 20 to get to point C. I would suggest that we ask the city to do some more research and tell us whether re-widening Father Morissette would affect the traffic in any positive way at all. I suspect it wouldn't. On the other hand, a 4-lane street in a location where it's not necessary or appropriate does have real negative consequences. 4 lanes encourage cars to speed, and worse, to whip around cars that are going the right speed. This creates unnecessary danger for us as pedestrians, especially for when we need to cross the street. And I think we all are familiar with the basic fact that the faster cars are going, the more likely they are to cause serious injury or death for pedestrians. So that's a safety issue for pedestrians as opposed to the safety issue that the bike lanes create. I really think a 4-lane street is more dangerous than a 2-lane street. An accident that everyone could have walked away from at 25 miles per hour can be fatal to someone at 40 miles per hour. And I really think a 2-lane street is safer. This is an area that lots of pedestrians use, and I'm especially thinking of the high school and UMass Lowell kids. We all want to get where we're going faster, but I would ask the counselors to think critically about making a trade of a tiny amount of traffic speed versus making that street much more unpleasant and dangerous for people walking. Thank you.
Thank you.
James Hall.
It's actually James Hill.
Oh, sorry about that.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I am owner and proprietor of City Bicycle, which is a bicycle shop downtown on Market Street. It's actually right next to Councilor Belanger's bar. The issue we have with the bike lanes really is an issue about better living for people. It's about voting to get rid of the bike lanes is really the wrong direction for the city. This aside from the condition of these particular lanes in this particular place. It's not a desirable direction overall, lifestyle-wise and public safety-wise, and also politically. As you well know, there are several ramifications to not moving forward with correct city plans and what have you. What I've seen as a business owner since we've put the new lanes in place is a much interest in the rules of safe driving, the rules of bicycling, the rules of how the streets work. A lot of my customers don't know that they're not allowed to ride their bike on the sidewalk. They don't know that they're supposed to ride their bike in the street. A lot of drivers that I talk to ask me, oh, well, do you want the bicycles in the street? They should be on the sidewalk, and they don't know the rules. And I've seen a marked increase in people's education level on the subject and how to behave in their vehicles, whether they're bicycles or cars or horses, which are all the things that the roads are meant to be used by everyone. So I think education is a big issue, and also just the long-term vision of where we're taking the city. Probably the most glowing point on this that I've experienced over the last week is a new customer to my shop who recently, I'll leave his name out of it, he's not here to represent himself, but a new customer to my shop, and he recently took a good job with the university. And he recently moved to Lowell. And to take his direct quote, he said, "It was assigned to me, a new resident, that Lowell is a city that thinks outside the car. If I wanted acres of parking and thoroughfares, I would live in the suburbs." And I think what we're trying to do is grow a city that's more user-friendly for everyone. And another thing that I hear about bicycling in the city is how dangerous it is, and that's one of the reasons a lot of people don't do it. And I think we want to make the city a safer and more friendly place for everyone. I won't talk too long, but that's really about it. But to conclude, I would say, politically, council and mayor, do you want to be voting to get rid of bike lanes? I think right there is probably what we don't want to do the most. And I don't know, that's about it. Thank you for your time, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Hill.
Joy Mossenfelder.
Hello, my name is Joy Mosenfelder. I live at 85 Royal Street, and I work at 517 Moody Street, where my window overlooks the stretch of Father Morissette Boulevard between Aiken Street and University Avenue. And I have the pleasure on sunny days when I'm stuck inside of seeing cyclists go by and living vicariously through them. I am a multimodal person. I have a car, but I also bicycle. And last year when I was in AmeriCorps Vista, I was biking every day because it was much more affordable for me to bike into work in all weather. And at that point, I was living in the Lower Highlands, so I was on Father Morissette Boulevard before the bike lanes went in and after the bike lanes went in. They're not perfect, but they are safer. I feel much safer on that road with traffic going by now than I did before the bike lanes went in, when I had drivers yelling at me to get off the road because they didn't think I belonged there on a bicycle. As a multimodal person, when I'm able to use my bicycle as my work commute, I spend more money in this city as a consumer because I am not putting money into my gas tank, which means I can go down to places like Major's Pub, where I've been to the Chestnuts when they were going. Life Alive is one of my favorite restaurants. I shop local a lot, and I have more money to spend local when I'm a bicycle commuter than I do when I'm driving my car. I think we all want to see the downtown businesses thrive, and many studies have been done that show that having better bicycle infrastructure does bring business into a city. With the university bringing in a new development at the corner of that neighborhood, I think we will see an increase in bicycle traffic. We already have seen an increase in bicycle use and bicycle traffic in this city over the years. You've heard from several people here tonight who are year-round cyclists and a number of us who are seasonal cyclists. As somebody who works in the low-income neighborhood of the Acre, I see a lot of cyclists in that neighborhood where it is clearly their only means of travel. And yes, they're using those lanes incorrectly, but that's an education issue. The same with the drivers. As a driver, I have seen people taking the right turn out of the bike lane and coming up the bike lane, and yeah, that's dangerous, but that's an enforcement and an education issue, not a let's eliminate the cycling lanes issue. Again, as a cyclist, I feel much safer with those lanes there than I did previous to those lanes existing. I'm more visible, and it's the rare driver who's breaking the law and using the lanes incorrectly who's putting me in danger, not the people who are just using the road correctly who are unaware of my presence on the road. So better bicycle infrastructure in this city, I think, would bring us all a lot of benefit. I've had the pleasure of bicycling in Madison, Wisconsin, which is one of the best bicycle infrastructure cities in the country. When I was there for 3 months, I touched my car twice in those 3 months, but I was able to go everywhere in the city, and it was a pleasure. They have their lanes set aside frequently, painted different colors, like I think it was Councilor Roark who mentioned, there's a lot of visibility around those lanes. So improving our infrastructure, making the lanes on Father Morissette Boulevard more visible, and then educating the public about why those lanes are there, you're going to see more people using them as the summer progresses, as the university development progresses, and as people become more aware of their existence and proper use. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Watson.
Hello, I'm David Watson. I'm the executive director of Mass Bike, the Massachusetts Bicycle Coalition. And thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you briefly, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. I think I'm very encouraged by the discussion I've heard tonight by the City Council, and you clearly understand the issues and are intent on finding the right solution. So thank you very much for that. I'd also like to thank the citizens of Lowell who have come out tonight, who obviously care so much about the success of the city and the safety of all the people using the roads here. And I think all of you can be very proud for having such an engaged citizenry. So I'm confident that working together, Mr. Mayor, City Council, and the residents, you will find the right solution, not only for Father Morissette, but for the city as a whole as you build out the bike network. And I urge you to move forward as quickly as possible to build out additional pieces of the bike network. I know there's been some good planning done already, and I hope that will continue. I do strongly encourage the formation of a bicycle advisory committee made up of members of appropriate city departments as well as members of the bicycling community to act in an advisory role to help find the right solutions as you move forward with the bike network plan. There is no one-size-fits-all solution. Planning for bicycle and pedestrian safety and access is a context-sensitive issue. It's a balancing act, finding solutions that work well for bicyclists, pedestrians, motorists, transit users, everyone who's using the roadways. I would like to mention some of the resources that Mass Bike, as the statewide bicyclist advocacy group, can bring to assist you. We do provide technical assistance to communities throughout the state through the Mass in Motion program that was mentioned earlier, and we're happy to do so here in Lowell. We recently, within the last week, launched new law enforcement training with the support of the Department of Public Health and public safety agencies to educate police officers across the state on what the bicycle laws are and how they affect interactions between bicyclists and motorists, and we would be very pleased to bring that to the city as well. We provide bicycle safety education through the Safe Routes to School program in schools across the Commonwealth, so that is also available to schools here in Lowell. And we stand ready to assist Lowell. As I said, I think you're moving in the right direction. I'm sure you'll come up with the right answers, and I look forward to seeing even more bicycling here in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Watson.
Last registered speaker, Patrick Murphy.
Thank you. My name is Patrick Murphy. I live at 1 Penniman Circle. Mr. Manager, members of the City Council, I come to speak tonight in opposition to this motion, which seeks to return Father Morissette Boulevard to its prior highway-like design. If the motion is amended to simply improve the design of the street, I would support that. But the question is how? And if I agreed with the makers of the motion, I'd say we'd all be wrong. Because what I object to most is the idea that we ought to design our city to accommodate cars before all else. A dangerous idea that's been pursued for the last several decades and has done significant damage to our city and many cities like it. Streets aren't just for moving cars in and out of the city. They're for moving people within our city. They're for facilitating all kinds of social and economic exchange that make urban places great. It's been said that battling congestion by adding more lanes is like treating obesity by buying bigger pants. It just doesn't address the issue. It stems from the mistaken belief that traffic is like a liquid that will overflow if squeezed into less space, though in fact it's more like a gas that will still fill up the space even when widened. So if we revert to an old design, let's go back a bit further to when streets were human-scaled and filled with people. And let's not stop at Father Morissette. Let's redesign the whole corridor here to Arcand Drive, Dutton Street, the Lord Overpass, Thorndike, all the way to the connector. Because highways and highway-like designed streets don't belong in the middle of a city. They contribute to congestion by concentrating traffic in one street instead of spreading it. They sever the street network, connections between neighborhoods and between people. They make the city less safe, devalue property, and export that value to suburbs. And they reduce the kind of foot traffic that would support growing retail and restaurant businesses in the downtown and the neighborhoods. To reverse this kind of damage will take time. And that's why the plan authored by Jeff Speck for our downtown calls for an evolution. The comprehensive plan for a sustainable Lowell, based upon our collective vision, charts a similar course. It also defines the problem differently. It doesn't simply look at one street and seek to move cars off it. Instead, it attempts to answer to the question of how do we make our downtown and our entire city great. These bike lanes are not the cause of congestion, and they aren't an imposition or a drag on the city. They're only an invitation. And when they are designed a bit better, perhaps by protecting them with parked cars, and as a part of a larger, more functional network, more people will accept that invitation. So my message tonight here is fairly simple. Plan for cars, and you'll end up with more cars. Plan for people, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised to see more of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion by Councilor Mercia was to send this issue to the city manager for report and recommendation. Seconded by Councilor, I believe it was seconded by Councilor Martin way back when. Further discussion on that issue. I know Councilor Samaras suggested that the issue, I was going to suggest that the issue be referred to the traffic subcommittee once the report is finished.
Transportation.
There isn't a transportation. As far as, we can send it to transportation, but we'll check on it. The report, once the manager completes it, to the transportation subcommittee. Okay? All those in favor of the motion signify by, Councilor Samaras, did you have something?
Yeah, I'd just like to add, no, I understand what you've stated, and I agree completely with that. But I think tonight, what I also heard was about terms about economic development. I mean, at this point, we could almost send the words from this group to the Subcommittee on Economic
Okay,
Development.
Motion was to, motion made and seconded to send to the city manager, and you had suggested the transportation subcommittee.
No, I know that. I'm just giving an overview of what I heard tonight. So I'm pleased with what I heard tonight. Why I'd like to see it go back to the Subcommittee on Transportation. Our master plan does include bike paths and what have you. They also spoke of needing a clearinghouse to be able to speak to people about their concerns. So I think the Subcommittee on Transportation would act as an excellent clearinghouse to further look into this issue.
Okay.
That's my request.
Right. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Councilor Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me just say that had we made a motion that said, let's send this back to the planning department or to the city manager to relook at this issue with the bike lanes, I don't think it would have an impact, and I don't know if anybody would be here tonight, but to put a motion forward that was more or less so shocking, and we got all these people here. I'm sorry to take up your time, but it's wonderful to have met everybody here. I didn't even know a person that was a bicyclist. Now I met a room full of people, so I think it was a great motion. Thank you for being here this evening.
Okay, being past 7 o'clock, we have scheduled public hearings. We'll move to that item on the agenda. That concludes the business on this. Thank you for coming. Did you have something, Mr. Manager?
Yeah, we can do it. Just check it out of order. We opened the, yeah, it was to,
We'll just take a moment till the crowd clears out.
reopen it. Yeah, just kind of reopen it.
Okay, moving into public hearings. We have one utility public hearing. This is a request for a pole location at 16 Maud Street. This is a continuation from April 22nd, 2014. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor O'Rourke. All those in favor signify by saying aye. And the opposed, motion carries. Second reading by title. National Grid, Verizon New England has petitioned the City Council for permission to erect poles and string wires thereon on number 16 Maud Street. At this point of the meeting, we'll open the public hearing for those wishing to speak in favor. In favor? Sir, can you please state your name and address?
Good evening, my name is Dave Agu, and I'm representing National Grid. National Grid is asking for permission to install a pole and an anchor at the corner of Maud Street. The reason for this is we've been requested by the city to take a tree guy out, and they're going to be removing that tree, but we have to support that pole at the corner of Maud Street. So we're asking for permission to install a pole and anchor there.
Thank you, Mr. Aguilar. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Wishing to speak in favor? In favor. That portion of the hearing is closed. Now open that portion of the hearing. Those wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? Anyone in opposition? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. What is the wish of the body?
Refer to the wire inspector.
Motion by Councilman Mercia, second by Councilman Linazzo, to refer to the wire inspector for report and recommendation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. In the opposed, motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Aguilar. Next item on the public hearing is 3.1 is a vote. Approve Air City Industrial Park Urban Revitalization and Development Plan. This is a continuation from April 15th. Entertain a motion to, I guess we'll just reopen the hearing. Motion by Council Martin, seconded by Council Mercia to reopen the hearing. Mr. Manager, did you want to have a, I guess we'll go through the public hearing first, so you want to give a presentation?
I think if I'd ask Craig James from the Division of Planning and Development and Diane Trad to do a brief presentation on the plan. I know it's already been submitted to the Economic Development Subcommittee, but I'd like you to just do a brief overview for the entire City Council and
Okay.
the viewers at home.
I know we recessed this, though, so the clerk did say we just have to open it, and then if there are any comments after the presentation, we'll entertain those comments. Is that okay with members of the council? Okay. Mr. Thomas?
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Craig Thomas. I'm the Urban Renewal Project Manager for the City of Lowell, and I appreciate the opportunity to present the Air City Industrial Park Plan to the council. It's been before you in multiple ways, and this is the concept for the Tanner Street corridor. The presentation outline, we're going to talk briefly about urban renewal in Lowell. We have 2 active projects with which this body is very familiar. Then we're going to talk about the Air City Industrial Park Plan, the details from the vision, existing conditions, development review, redevelopment planning, proposed infrastructure and green space, and proposed redevelopment outcomes. So the benefits of urban renewal, this is really why we do this. Why do we propose these plans? That I think it's become relatively clear over time, both in this city and across the state, that there are areas with significant redevelopment potential to create good jobs and support a robust tax base, but they're unlikely to reach that full potential without the partnership of the public sector, in particular local government. The designation of an urban renewal district allows the city in that very confined geographic area to buy and sell land much like a private developer in furtherance of an approved plan. This lets us do things like where there are parcels where the ownership is simply unknown, and we're incapable of figuring out who the legal owner is. The city can be the purchaser as part of a redevelopment initiative. In addition, we find that it enhances our grant opportunities, both the ability to spend grant money and to secure incoming grant funds. For our entitlement programs like CDBG, the creation and designation of an urban renewal district enhances our ability to fund a wider variety of actions that would normally be allowed. In addition, many grant programs have additional points as part of their scoring system for urban renewal areas, which we've used to great effect as, again, this body is well aware, to bring in outside funding to these urban renewal areas. And third, which is a little less obvious, but something that we find is that the public planning and the process to create these urban renewal plans is such that we have a project ready to go when new initiatives come to us, that we can propose things like when the Growth District initiative came out of the state, we could turn around and say, we have the Hamilton Canal District, it's been pre-permitted, we had extensive visioning with this, and we are ready to be designated. As a part of that very quick designation, we received considerable money to help with the redevelopment of the Hamilton Canal So Around 2000, the city had made great strides in redevelopment, especially in the downtown and the historic mill sections. But there were areas, as I mentioned, that had redevelopment potential that needed extra partnership to realize that. These are some shots from the Acre and the Jam Plan. And that in Lowell today, we know a lot of the activities that have taken place in the Jam Plan, the completed infrastructure of an early garage, and the Jackson Street, Canal Street reconstruction have leveraged over $100 million of investment in the Appleton Mills, in Loft 27, and the Cotton House Lofts, and others. In the Acre Plan, we've completed some significant redevelopments, including some that have benefits citywide, including the senior center, as well as infill housing redevelopment. So now we come to the Air City Industrial Park Plan. This plan is actually designed to be a little different than the Acre and the Jam Plan, in that this is really about partnership, the city seeking to partner with the existing landowners and the private sector to accomplish our redevelopment goals. This vision statement was developed in collaboration with the Community Advisory Committee, which was convened over a course of 2 years with stakeholders from the neighborhoods, regional state government, as well as Lowell residents who sit on some of the land use boards. As a part of developing this vision statement, we also held a series of public meetings at the LRTA facility on Hale Street. We had attendance over 50 persons at the meetings. Coming out of that process, the vision statement for this plan is as follows. Air City Industrial Park should be an active, economically vital, attractive, and sustainable commercial and industrial district that supports and enhances existing businesses, attracts new development and businesses, provides enhanced connection and links to the Gallagher Terminal, and better utilizes the natural resources in the area. To understand the district, its assets, and possibilities, we looked at the district as it exists today, and the district boundary is defined by the red line you see there. What you'll see is that a significant portion of the district is right-of-way, being the Lowell connector, but the next largest chunk is actually vacant, and this is where we see significant opportunities for very near-term redevelopment. In addition, there is an existing industrial base, which again we worked with and seek to support, and a series of auto-related uses. And just as a way to understand the possibilities that exist in this area, right now there are about 600,000 square feet of building floor space, but under the existing zoning today, there could be up to 6 million. So there, even in the existing regime for zoning and for siting, we're at 10% of build out, and we're investigating new opportunities to reduce entitlement hurdles for new development going forward. So as a part of understanding what's going on, we looked, based on the existing conditions, at what the potential for change is out in the district. And you'll see we were looking at really the opportunities for redevelopment in the near and midterm. The near term you'll see in red, and the midterm you'll see in blue. As a part also of understanding what the development potential is out there, we started to have conversations about concerns of folks, the concerns that have dominated the redevelopment conversation about this area. Both title concerns, the ability to get secure access to the sites needed for redevelopment, and environmental impairments. As everyone knows very clearly, Silresm site's at the heart of this plan, and this plan has a lot to do with trying to change perceptions about contaminated land and how it can be redeveloped. So we conducted a market study to try and understand both the advantages of the district. This has been presented a few times, and the advantages, I think, are relatively straightforward in that we have low relative costs outside of Boston, we have good highway access off the Lowell connector, we have good commuter rail access, we have educational institutions, and the city government willing to partner for redevelopment. What we see from the redevelopment demand, which is what we heard from the national marketing firm, were that the most likely entities to redevelop here would be looking for small, flexible industrial buildings that can be subdivided in the 10,000 square foot block size with loading docks. Also, there's an opportunity for retail along Plain Street and Manufacturer Street, but there's no demand for office spaces or large speculative spaces. So based on what we saw on the ground and what we see for the opportunity for redevelopment, we created the redevelopment proposal here. You see several sub-districts that have proposed redevelopment amounts. You see in A, there's the potential for up to 45,000 square feet of industrial. In area B, the potential for up to 40,000 square feet of new industrial space. In areas C and D, these are the large chunks of vacant land that are landlocked currently and inaccessible for redevelopment. There's nearly over 200,000 square feet of potential new industrial development, as well as opportunities near Plain Street and Manufacturer Street for new industrial and retail development. But this is really important to remember that this is the vision for this plan and the vision for redevelopment opportunities. Individual projects are based on the sites and how those projects move forward. So as a part of achieving this vision, there are potential actions that could be taken to the existing sites to provide for the long-term redevelopment. Again, these are the kinds of actions that ideally the private landowners will move forward with to facilitate redevelopment on their parcels without city engagement. These actions that define the redevelopment potential are not requirements of the city, nor do we seek to undertake them without partners in the private sector. Similarly, as we talked about with potential city acquisitions, these are not requirements of the city, but rather this is saying the city has a redevelopment interest in these areas, and the designation allows the city to expend CDBG funding in the way I've described, as well as investigate opportunities for things like land swaps, which are otherwise not allowable under public procurement, but in these districts, in furtherance of the plan and redevelopment objectives, we can do. And attached to that, we have the disposition of potential parcels. And it's important to think about that, as with all of these, any land use action as a part of this plan moving forward, each and every project come before this body for affirmative votes. The same way we do every time. These are really about empowering the city to be a partner with our private redevelopment stakeholders. So how can we provide the necessary infrastructure to facilitate this redevelopment? We have a few specific recommendations, including a Tanner Street realignment, which we'll get to, new and improved connections, the creation of green space, and the Lowell Connector safety upgrade. I don't have any more information with the Lowell Connector other than this slide, which is to say north of Plain Street, the proposal is to shrink the number of lanes from 3 to 2 and shrink the widths as a part of slowing traffic as it comes in to meet Gorham Street, to try and reduce, Central Street, to try and reduce the issue we have with a wall there being knocked down each and every time because of unsafe travel speeds dead-ending in a small urban road, on a small urban road. The Tanner Street realignment, this is the same plan has been proposed and before the council on multiple occasions. The goal for this was multiple: to enhance the redevelopment potential of the entire district by making an entry point that was easier for traffic, to accommodate the increased traffic along the redevelopment of Tanner Street from this gateway, to create a new and marketable gateway, and in particular to reduce truck traffic on Main Street. We hear a lot from folks in the abutting residential area that there's truck traffic on Main Street, and we really found this to be a function of the poor access to Tanner Street in this area. And with enhanced access, we're in good position to improve our enforcement and to really push all the traffic to this realigned entryway. This realignment was chosen from several alternatives because of the ease of maneuverability of trucks, can minimize the impacts to the existing businesses, and maximize the redevelopment potential of the parcels. So we have new and improved connections. There are Lincoln Street and Hale Street. We're talking about underpass enhancements. And new rights of way to interior parcels and Canada and Maple Street are linked together here. Again, there's a significant amount of landlocked land available for the redevelopment of the largest and most substantial industrial blocks where we see, again, the opportunities for significant job growth and tax-based support. As a part of that, though, we also recognize that there are conditions now, and we've heard them at public meetings. I heard them just now from folks who have come in to talk about this plan, that Canada and Maple Street are not the way they should be, and we agree. We have streets that have industrial buildings fronting directly on residential buildings. In here, we propose streetscape enhancements to try and buffer those, to add better parking, and to try and reduce the speed of cars in areas, and to reduce the truck traffic outside of the main corridor. Uh-oh. My clicker just stopped working. Just like the internet, turn it off and turn it on again. All right, for green space, this plan isn't really about creating recreational or residential amenities, but rather there are some very specific opportunities that we wanted to propose as a part of this. First, along the Lowell Connector, there's ample land to investigate a greenway there, as well as a city parcel at the end of Cambridge Street to try and build access to that. In addition, there's actually a pond in the area. It's off of Maple Street. We see the opportunity for some innovative stormwater management and potentially recreational opportunities. So pulling it all together, this is the project plan of all the potential activities, both of the public and private sector, hopefully working together to achieve the redevelopment goals. This project is was developed at the same time as the new Sustainable Lowell 2025 Master Plan, and its implementation is a part of that plan. So in summation, the redevelopment outcomes that are proposed as a part of this are brownfields cleanup and redevelopment, more than 330,000 square feet of new development, largely industrial, hundreds of new employment opportunities, up to nearly 1.4 million in new annual tax revenue, the transformation of the Lowell Connector, new green spaces, and improved streetscapes and gateways. The next steps, if the council so desires to approve the plan, it would move forward to the Department of Housing and Community Development for review and a potential approval within 60 days. As we speak, the implementation is already underway. We're looking at a district improvement financing package, which would try and take some of the new tax increment from development in the area to reinvest in the infrastructure to create a virtuous cycle for development in the district, as well as updated zoning, as I mentioned, to reduce entitlement hurdles and facilitate development. So.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a few questions.
I just want to let members know, we're still in the public hearing is open, so why don't we go through the public hearing process? We'll open and close both hearings of the hearing process, and then we'll go to comments from councilors, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? In favor? Please come to the podium and state your name and address, sir.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, thank you very much. My name is Peter Lawler. I'm an attorney in practice in Chelmsford, and I represent the majority family interest ownership in the Levine family, who owns properties primarily on the Tanner Street and Plain Street end of Tanner Street. And we are probably the ownership interest most affected by this plan. We have been involved now for almost 2 years with the DPD in walking us through how this would impact changes significant for my client's interests. And candidly, we came to this process with great concern because there's no way that this project, the realignment, particularly in the Tanner Street end, could occur without significant impacts to our existing ownership interests and business interests. We've been in that on Tanner Street doing business longer than any other business on Tanner Street, period. And so our expectation, this is a multi-generational family ownership, our expectation is that we stay for many more generations there. That having been said, I applaud the approach taken by the DPD. It has been methodical, professional, and inclusive. There are fewer people here tonight than there have been at all of the meetings along and preparing us for it, and that is really what we believe is a testament to the way in which they have sought to incorporate the input from all of the ownership interests along that way, including ours. The realignment as it's been presented, which would line up the target entrance with the new location of Tanner Street, will have an impact on some of our business interests in that area, but it will occur in a way that we believe will complement not only the interests of the city of Lowell, but also our own ownership interests. And it's a way that will occur in a way that we think will be advantageous for us and one which we can work with. We would encourage the council to support the DPD plan. We look forward to working with the city, the manager, and developing our interests in a way consistent and in great harmony with the plan that's been presented tonight. And we encourage the council's support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lawler. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Ms. McCarthy?
Yes, good evening. My name is Carol McCarthy. I live at 64 Blossom Street in Lowell, and I'm also co-chair of the Sacred Heart Neighborhood Improvement Group. Now, for several years, I, along with other members of the business, have attended meetings with the Planning and Development over the corridor of Tanner Street. We talked about what we as residents would like to see, as well as the current businesses on Tanner Street would like to see. We all agreed that Tanner Street needs some attention and some tender loving care. I'm happy when I always hear that the city has found another grant that they can apply for, and I'm happy to support any grant measures I can to bring positive changes on Tanner Street. I'd like to support that we've had from Nikki Songus that provides us for any monies to bring positive change along Tanner Street and the cleanup of the contaminated site at Tanner Street. Right. I think Tanner Street, when you look at it, it has a negative effect. I mean, any businesses that came to our city that were negative hit Tanner Street. We all know the trash transfer fight that we had against the street. What we would like to see on Tanner Street, and we would like you to embrace this plan, because we would like to see Tanner Street to have a positive. Businesses that will come to our city, that will put tax money back into our coffers, and that will have a positive, environmentally safe impact for the businesses that are already down there and for the effect of the residents that are in the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCarthy. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? In favor? In favor. That portion of the hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Please come to the podium. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Mark Plord. I live at 26 Main Street in Lowell, and I am a direct abutter to this situation here. I'm all for getting that area redeveloped. It's been an eyesore. I look out my windows and I see the old Wright's Trucking building falling apart, windows out of it. We've had drug dealers down there. There's been people swapping plates around. It's just ridiculous. The city has done a great job of getting that area cleaned up right now. You can actually sit outside and hear the birds. You can sit in your living room and watch television. If they open up Canada Street to Maple Street, it's going to become a throughway for everyone wanting from the other side of Gorham, going to Target, trying to take a shortcut. The tenants that were in there took it upon themselves to fill in the railroad tracks, and as soon as they did it, it was a throughway through there. The dirt and dust, it's ridiculous. There's stuff in this report that is not quite true. Canada Street is not 50 feet wide the entire length. If you measure from my property to the other side of the road, it's 32. Where do they plan on coming up with the extra 18 feet to make up for these parking spaces and stuff that they want to put in there? When we have company visit, and our neighbors do, they all park on the side of the house. We're going to lose those spaces because there's no way that they can put in what they want to do. Maple Street is an eyesore. I personally never go out Maple or Lincoln Street to try to get across Gorham Street because it's almost impossible to get out of there. The traffic is absolutely terrible. And it's only going to get worse if that's opened up. I'm sure when they built that building on Maple Street, they had a beautiful plan like the one that's shown in their little thing here. I think it's figure 13. Well, if you take a trip down there, the building is an eyesore. The windows, half the windows are busted out of it. There was a fire there. There's garbage from one end of that property to the other. The way that this is set up right now, it should not be approved. Taking two roads off of Tanner Street and running them through this new area and then dumping them out at the end of Canada Street is only going to destroy the neighborhood that we have. Now, that home has been in my family since 1950. I was born here. I'm the only member of my family that has actually moved back to Lowell. And the only reason we bought the house from my parents was because we liked the neighborhood. In fact, there's still quite a few people living there that were there when I was a little kid. My grandchildren are the 6th generation of my family to be in that house. We don't want this overdeveloped. We need to leave, they can redevelop that without affecting Canada Street at all. Clean it up, yes, but widen it up and opening it up to the other street is absolutely ridiculous. And I don't think you should approve it the way it is. I have not been contacted. I have been available. Nobody has contacted me once during this whole process. I've been told, oh, we put flyers in door. Nobody put any flyer in my door. Nobody contacted me. My address hasn't changed. Something could have been mailed to us. Nobody contacted us for any input. Any of my neighbors that I have talked to have not heard from anyone on these committees about any of this. And I think that this neighborhood, it may be a small neighborhood, but it needs to be taken into consideration, and it needs to be protected during this process.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Patrick Kennedy. I live at 5 Cottage Place, right around the corner from Mark. I am also a butter to this development on Maple and Canada. My kids play there. We have several children that play in the area, small children, no higher than my knee that you can't see. If you open up that area, it's for truckers, and I can see it now. Maple Street is not a wide street. If you have trucks coming through to cut across, to go into Canada, you know, you're gonna have kids ran over. There's no way that that street can support industrial traffic. We have Spaghettiville Bridge. I can't tell you how many times I've seen trucks yanked out of that. Now you're going to redirect them coming down Maple Street to cut across Canada just to get to Tanner. It's going to add additional traffic to that area, industrial traffic, which is not really meant for a residential area. You know, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition, seeing none, that portion of the hearing is closed. What is the wish by the council, Marcia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Some time ago, when this was first proposed for a vote, I asked for a delay so we could refer this back to the planning department so that they could look at land and parking lots that were in acquisition in the gray area of this draft that became a final document. And it was referred back to the city manager, and I want to say that I'm very, very grateful. Mr. Manager, you did meet with the veterans at the VFW and took it off the acquisition list, very rightfully so, and they're very, very grateful. I thought a group of people called veterans that fought for our rights and freedom should not have been treated in such a way that we were yanking what they had structured and put together for their own use after what they did to sacrifice their life for us, and rightfully so, it was taken off, and that was great. And I was happy, and I'm here today to support this until I received calls from people that you just met come up to the podium, and they said, we were never notified, and I don't live on Main Street, so actually I don't care how many trucks cut through, but actually we have to, because these are our constituents, these are taxpayers, and when one person comes up to that podium and they're dissatisfied, I know we had the public hearing, that's all well and good, but I would delay this vote until these people met again, which I tried to have a meet earlier, but I guess they didn't come to any decisions. I think we can't miss out and support a whole project at the expense of a few that are dissatisfied. I know that if my children were playing on a street and trucks never came that way, and now we're going to open it up and have trucks come down, I'd be a little bit concerned myself. So I don't know how my colleagues feel, but I'm almost there. But I think, again, there's another compromise that could be made. You heard two families that came forward, and they're not happy. And I think we should revisit that particular section one more time. I know it's very difficult to meet and put flyers on every single piece of property, but I'm not satisfied in with supporting something until everybody's happy here, and I don't see that, and I'm willing to delay it for another week until they get together again and try to reconfigure what they want to do.
Councilman Malinazzo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I appreciate Councilor Mercia's comments regarding the people that spoke in opposition, but as I understand it, being involved in urban renewal plans like this in the past, there's always an opportunity to amend the plan once it goes down to DHCD. So I'm not sure that a delay will actually get us anywhere but delaying it. We also heard from a property owner along Tanner Street that's been there for many years, employing a lot of people and contributing, in my opinion, back to the economic vibrancy of the city, and they're in support of the plan. So, I mean, again, you have pros and cons, but at the same time, all we're looking to do tonight is approve the plan to send it to DHCD for their review and their approval, during which time planning and development can meet with the people that spoke in opposition. So, again, it's hard, as Councilor Mercia said, to please all of our constituents, but at the same time, we're looking at a major redevelopment effort here that, again, I wouldn't want my children or grandchildren, you know, on Maple Street with trucks coming in, but I think those types of things can be worked out once the plan gets down to DHCD. And we've voted amendments to urban renewal plans many, many, many times in this council. So at this point, I would not support the motion, the move to delay. I think it really needs to, we delayed it once, and I think we need to get it down to DHCD so they can begin their review and approval. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So that's what you, through you to the manager, Mr. Manager, that's what you're looking for tonight, isn't it? Is just a vote, an affirmative vote to send it on to the state for their review.
Mr. Manager?
Correct, and I'll certainly be willing to meet with the neighbors to try and alleviate some of their concerns relative to that, the connection of the two streets, and we can probably do some adjustments to the street to satisfy them. I met with the veterans last week, and they're very happy. They have letters of support. I will do the same with these neighbors and hopefully get their support for the proposal.
Right, and so, and I think it's important to send it down as well. So I agree with Council Malinazzo, but I see no reason why we can't handle both issues concurrently. Why can't we send it down for their review, but at the same time deal with the potential traffic issues of the plan? And so I would move approval of the plan, and also ask that it be referred to the Subcommittee for Economic Development to just work specifically on those, on the traffic considerations.
Second. Motion by Councilor Kennedy. Move approval on proceeding with the plan, at the same time sending the issue to the Subcommittee on Economic Development. Seconded by Councilor Malinazzo. Further discussion? Councilor Marcia?
How long was this plan, how long was the Tanner Street area like that? And now we have a plan and we're going to rush it through? And we've waited for years and years and years for this plan to come forward, and all of a sudden we got to rush it to, I don't get why we're rushing it. And how can I be reassured that these people are going to be, do they understand what we're saying here? Because I don't know that they do. I want to know if they have a problem with what we're going to do here. I answer to these people. I don't answer to this council. I answer to them here in the audience here. And I want to make sure that they understand what we're talking about.
Sure. Gentlemen, do you want to come to the podium? We'll try to explain what's taking place here.
Can I readdress?
Sure. Well, we're out of the public hearing, but if there's no objection from members of the council.
I'm not, you know, I agree with the plan as far as the city's concern of redevelopment of Tanner Street. When we're talking about redirecting traffic from Gorham Street through Maple Street to Canada Street into Tanner, there's a problem, okay? This is not an industrial size road. It's not an industrial street. None of you travel that street. None of you have been down the street, okay? When you travel that street, it's very narrow. There's multiple cars and multiple families with multiple kids that live up and down Maple, as well as myself and Mark, who have children and young children that play along in those areas. You know, I don't need my kid being struck down by an 18-wheeler. You know, it's that section alone that needs to be addressed. The trafficking routing from Gorham Street up Maple to Canada into Tanner Street. That's what I want addressed.
Okay.
And so we will, right?
Thank you. Mr. Manager, and then Council Kennedy.
You're absolutely correct. What we're doing is we're sending down to DHCD a concept for the redevelopment of Tanner Street area. So what I'm asking is that we send down the concept to the state, but that I sit down with the neighbors and we'll talk about a way to make sure that that is safe for the residents and especially the children.
Council Kennedy? Council Kennedy, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, I agree that we've been sitting on this for a long time and nothing's been done. That's not a reason to sit on it longer. There's no reason why two things can't be done concurrently. I mean, the Subcommittee on Economic Development met earlier this evening. You were at that meeting. I suspect that when we meet on this, you'll probably be at that meeting as well, Council Mercy. So there'll be plenty of time to address it. And although I don't travel down there all the time, I have relatives that live in that neighborhood, so I know what those streets are like. I understand that there shouldn't be tractor-trailer trucks traveling up and down that street. But I think that, I mean, we're not trying to just like fluff the thing off. I mean, those traffic concerns are real concerns, but there's no reason why we can't address the traffic concerns to everybody's satisfaction and at the same time move the plan forward. This is just a plan. It has some flexibility, but I think that we need to get off the dime and get it down there so that it can be reviewed. And so that's why the motion is structured to do both things concurrently.
Thank you, Council. Council Mercia.
I agree with getting off the dime, but I want that dime corrected when it gets there. I don't want to have to say that, oh, gee, we should have done that, but we didn't. That's the only thing that I'm saying, but I'm trusting the city manager that he will meet with the DPD and the neighbors, and that's what I'm saying. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Council Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Besides, I think it's a great plan with a great concept, and it's been far too long down that area. It's seen no attention, no redevelopment in quite some time. So this is encouraging to see. I think we all agree on that, even those neighbors with concerns of traffic, and we hear them loud and clear. But it just says, I hear Councilor Mercier's concern. I think we can simultaneously achieve where the manager can sit down with the neighborhood, get their concerns, and we can send it to the state for their approval of the plan as well. So I think simultaneously we can achieve this. Plans can be amended, as Councilor Milanazzo stated. So by no means are we leaving out these residents who some of this seems to be new to them. That's a surprise in itself. But I assure we hear their concerns loud and clear, and that they will be addressed. But in the end, it's all good. This is a tremendous thing that's going on here, of an area that's very blighted. Even the abutters complain of drug use and God knows what else going on down there. That should all be cleaned up when this is achieved. So let's all work together here and for a common good of their neighborhood and our city. And I believe, again, it can be achieved simultaneously. So I do support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. I just wanted to add also that, I agree with the concept of moving this forward. I have been through that neighborhood. I actually worked on Maple Street when they redeveloped that industrial park 20 years ago. And to look at it today, it's deplorable. So, and I absolutely agree with the neighborhood that, that shouldn't become a new truck route. The main traffic and the truck should stay on the main roads, and the neighborhood should stay neighborhood. So I would like to move this forward. After talking to a lot of people on Tanner Street, I guess this has been in the process for like 30 years maybe, about 30 years we've been working on this, so it's about time we get going on it. But we absolutely have to listen to the neighborhood and work their concerns out, and I'm sure the manager will meet with you shortly, and we'll get this going, and we'll get the neighborhood's concerns heard, and we'll get that straightened out.
Thank you, Council. Further discussion? Council Belanger?
Mr. Mayor, I just had a couple quick questions to Craig Thomas, if he's still here. I just would like to know how many parcels are currently city-owned on this
Mr.
project
Thomas?
as we see it right now.
Off the top of my head, it's a very small number. I believe we indicated 9 parcels in tax title in the plan, and that includes the 3 Silresum, which are in tax arrears we haven't actually foreclosed upon, and another 1 or 2. So it's in the order of 3 to 5, and they're actually very small. There aren't really any city holdings in this area.
Okay, well, what's the strategy at this point, Craig? Is it a master development like at Hamilton Canal, or is it to put each parcel, figure out the best use, determine, and put it out for bid, or what's the strategy at this point?
Yep, it's as I mentioned very early in the presentation, this is really about partnership. We're looking for the designation, so the city has the urban renewal tools, such that when the private landowners or private redevelopers are looking at these sites, they say, is the city going to be there if we need them? And we can be there to help as needed.
Great, okay, thank you. And I think it's wonderful. I personally, I'd like to see each parcel identify the best use and go out individually rather than a master developer like we see at the Hamilton Canal. Things are still going forward, but I just think that gives the developer too much control, and they go at their pace rather than the pace we would like to see things done. So I think it's great. I look forward to getting this referred to the Economic Development Subcommittee and looking forward to see this project go forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Further discussion? Roll call.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
9 yeas, motion carries. Next item. Well, we have to go back to the minutes of portion of the hearing. That's 2.1. Minutes of City Council meeting April 22nd, as well as minutes of Public Safety Subcommittee April 22nd for acceptance. Motion to approve by Council Kennedy, seconded by Council Belanger. Although to accept and place on file. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Already did 2.1, 3.1, 4.1. Lands us at section 5 of the agenda. Communications from the city manager. Motion responses. Questions on motion responses from the city manager? Seeing none, entertain a motion to accept and place on file by Council Leahy, seconded by Council Martin. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item, 5.2, communication, FY14 budget update and FY15 budget progress. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mayor Elliott. First of all, much of the first 2 weeks that I've spent on the job have been dealing with the fiscal year 14 budget that is coming to an end in June, and meeting with every department head, all 34, not only to talk about finishing up this year, but planning for next fiscal year's budget. As of the conclusion of this morning, we have met with all of the department heads and are satisfied to make this report to you this evening. Obviously, accolades have to go to my interim CFO, Bob Healy, who has done a tremendous job with not only making sure that the current budget will end in balance, but also formulating next year's budget. But I think Mr. Healy would also agree with me that we never could have come this far in 2 weeks if it wasn't for Connor Baldwin and Rodney Conley from our office, who know where every nickel and dime in this city is, and they should be commended also for doing a wonderful job with the budget. What I wanted to report is that, as you see in the memo, is the fiscal year 14-year budget will end balanced, with the exception of one account, which is understandable, the snow and ice account. Anybody who lived in the city or worked here knows that we've had an incredibly difficult winter. The original projection started at about $3.5 million as a deficit, but we've been able to make adjustments, and right now we're estimating that at the end of this fiscal year that the snow and ice deficit will total $1.6 million. 500,000, it's the only account that you can run a deficit into the next fiscal year. So the already in the fiscal year 15 budget that was submitted to you previously, there is a $500,000 deficit built into the fiscal year 15 budget. So there's 500,000 of it. We are anticipating getting a reimbursement from FEMA in the vicinity of $500,000 for the snow and ice that occurred this winter. So that brings the deficit down to about 600,000. And believe it or not, I have to commend the department heads in this city, is that they've done a wonderful job watching the expenses throughout the year. And we believe that we're going to be able to use surplus money to balance that other $600,000 and by the end of the year. So the fiscal year 14 budget looks very good, and we're happy to report that to you this evening. Now, the fiscal year 15 budget is going to be a very tight budget. Like I said, we've met with every department. We still have to meet with the school department because we have the net school spending issue to resolve in the fiscal year 15 budget. But we're looking forward to presenting to you a balanced and a sensible budget for fiscal year 15. We're anticipating being able to submit that to you by the beginning of June so that there will be ample opportunity to review the budget and have any hearings that you so desire, and we'll respond to all of your questions. So things are looking good financially, thanks to the interim CFO and Connor and Rodney, and we're willing to address any questions that the council may have this evening for where we are now or where we're heading.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Council Belanger, and then Council Rook.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, I have the utmost confidence in you and your financial team, and we look forward to a very responsible budget to be unveiled to the council in the near future. But one question that I forgot to ask during the when former manager Lynch presented the budget was that it proposed 8 new firemen. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Is that in the budget? Because the 5 proposed police officers were not. So are the 8 firemen in the budget?
No.
No.
The 5 we have to fund the 5 policemen for 8 months, and we're committed to funding the 5 additional patrolmen for those 8 months in this upcoming budget, because we committed to public safety. There were 8 firefighter positions that were proposed but not funded in the fiscal year 15 budget. So that's an issue that we're still grappling with. We're going to do whatever we can, but we wanted to commit to the patrolmen definitely, and we're going to see what we can do relative to the firefighters.
Wow, that's very, very disheartening, Mr. Manager. I should have asked that during back in February, but I almost assumed it was included in that budget, and that's very, very concerning nonetheless. So I don't have an answer for you. You are the finance guy with the team, so I trust you'll come up with the best solution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council. Council Rook.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to the manager. In reading your update to us, just status on the contract negotiations with 1705 and 2532.
My understanding is that 2532 membership approved their contract last night, so we will be formulating the final contract for submission, and we have sufficient funds to pay that contract. And as far as 1705, we are very, very close on 1705. I really expect probably within a week that will be concluded. There's just one issue about flexibility language that we're working on, and I'm sure we'll be able to reach finality on that contract also. And there's sufficient funds in that the stabilization fund to pay that contract also.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Further questions on the report? Motion to entertain the report as a report of progress and placed on file by Council Mercia, seconded by Council Milonazo. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is 6. It's a vote from the city manager. First reading is a vote to declare surplus 603 Chelmsford Street for $130,000. Motion to waive the full reading by Council O'Rourke, seconded by Council Samaras. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. The second reading is by title. Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the City of Lowell, in City Council is a vote declaring surplus property for property located at 603 Chelmsford Street, Lowell, Mass., and authorizing the city manager to seek proposals under the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 30B, for the disposition of said parcel, namely 603 Chelmsford Street, Lowell, Mass.
So moved.
Motion to approve by Council Kennedy, second by Council Samaras. Roll call.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
Council Samaras.
Yes.
Council Belanger.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott.
Yes.
Council Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Martin.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
9 yeas, motion carries. Next item, 7. 7.1, reports, subcommittee, Economic Development Subcommittee. Tonight, April 29th, 2014. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did hold an Economic Development Subcommittee meeting this evening. It was attended by all members of the Economic Development Subcommittee, as well as Councilor Samaras, Councilor Mercia, Councilor Milonazo, and Councilor Leahy. The parking director, Jim Troop, was on hand as well, and the order of business was the parking ordinance throughout the city, and it was well attended by a lot of businesses and residents, not only throughout the downtown, but throughout the city, and we had a very spirited discussion of the current parking ordinance, which currently reads on the kiosks 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday to Saturday, and the issue is that it's not enforced all of those hours. It's only enforced Monday to Friday till 4 p.m., but businesses had a concern stemming from postings at Human Resources that they were looking to hire meter enforcement officers until 6 p.m., and that raised a red flag, and businesses were very, very concerned that meter maids were going to be enforced in parking until 6 p.m., and I personally feel that if you enforce the ordinance till 6 on Saturdays, that it would be disastrous to businesses. So one thing we all agree on is that parking is an issue in the downtown. It's the biggest deterrent from people coming downtown, patronizing our shops and restaurants and whatnot. Because you can go to the Pheasant Lane Mall and buy clothing and park for free. You can go to the 99 and eat for free. So we are trying to create an environment that's parking friendly to encourage customers to come downtown and patronize our shops. So it's not been easy. It's one thing to scale back to lessen up enforcement, but on the flip side, several arguments were made that residents and visitors will gobble up that parking nights and weekends and just not move. So it may be free, but we also need enforcement at that time. So there are challenges that lie ahead. I think we're all working in the same direction here. It's going very well, but it will take quite a few more meetings like this to come to a resolution. And so we have a report coming from Jim Troop again for next meeting. He's going to propose another study on this parking issue that I think that he proposed that a study can be done for a pretty comprehensive study can be completed from the tune of $45,000 to $60,000. That is not my mission here. That is far too much money. We know the issues. We're downtown, we're here, we're in the city every day. There is no need to spend that kind of money on a study. So I think we can achieve this for next to nothing in-house through the data and the software we have in the parking department is very, very up to date. We can achieve revenue figures almost overnight. We can get input from the businesses, residents, within no time at all. So we're well on our way to a resolution, Mr. Mayor, and I just wanted to brief members of the council that studies, as far as financing a study, there's nothing in place yet, but it may very well come into this for a full vote to the council. But right now, he's proposing $12,000. If we were to go forward, I think we can still do a lot better than that, or almost nothing, quite frankly. So it's going forward, but it's going to take a few more hearings, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Leahy?
Thank you.
And Councilor
I
Samaras.
attended most of the meeting, but I guess one question that comes up too is, there are other cities or towns that don't charge for parking, so I don't know if it's true for Lawrence or Haverhill, but are we gonna research that? I mean, basically, if we don't wanna have money at the meters, we basically just have to know how much does it cost to enforce it, right? You go around, you mark the tires, and the people have to move every 2 hours. So is that part of the study too? Are we gonna find out that, you know, right now, if we take all the money from the meters out of the equation, how much does it cost us to pay for our meter maids to drive around? That sounds like that's the basic, is that the basic question here? I mean, because that's what we're trying to find out, right?
Councilor Kenny, you have an answer to that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could, I'm on that subcommittee.
Right.
And I believe that we didn't really have the time to spend on that aspect, but I recall one of the speakers getting up and saying that, or recommending that there be a certain amount of free time in the garage, and I think that he was saying that there was 15 minutes of free time, and that really 15 minutes wasn't enough to do anything, so he was suggesting maybe 30 minutes, which is, you know, it could be 30 minutes, and I suppose it could just as well be an hour, but that's probably something, it's up, you know, the chairman would probably agree, that's probably something for a subsequent meeting. We just didn't have the time to take that up adequately, but it did come up, so I'm expecting it would come up again.
Councilor Samaras, and then back to you, Councilor Belanger.
I have another subcommittee I want to talk about. I'll
Oh.
wait till its closure.
Okay, Councilor
And Mr.
Belanger
Mayor,
on
I
this
just wanna,
subject matter?
I'd like to bring a little clarification to Council Leahy. Brings up a good point. Council Kennedy is correct that we did not have enough time to get into that, Council Leahy, but we will. But information I do have for you is that parking kiosks, just on-street parking now, not counting garage revenue, takes in $823,000 a year. That would be very difficult to overlook. The more figure that I'm looking at is what's taken in after 4 p.m. and on Saturday, where the kiosk instructs you to put money in, but it's not enforced. So in one sense, we're misrepresenting ourselves. That figure is about $160,000 annually. So even that will be sadly missed. But nonetheless, I think on the other end, we could make up for it on the other end, such as meals tax revenue that the city gets and whatnot. So we will look at your issue. I will explore it. But it will be hard to look at eliminating $800,000 out of the budget, Councilor, and with all due respect. Thank you very much.
Further discussion? Motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Councilor Rourke, seconded by Councilor Samaras. All those in favor signify by saying aye. And the opposed, motion carries. Subcommittee report, Councilor Samaras.
I'd just like to announce that we're going to have a subcommittee meeting on youth services on May 13th.
May 13th.
To discuss the availability of summer jobs. And I would ask that the city manager, if he could get the particular department heads and some of the agencies that deal with summer jobs. I think the need for this is important at this particular time, for the city council to be aware of what jobs are available for our youth and what other things that we can do to ensure that we have a good summer. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councilor. Further subcommittee reports, Councilor Marcia?
And that meeting is at 5:30.
5:30. Great. Okay. Moving on to the next item, we have petitions. There are claims. There are 2 for property damage. Motion to refer to the Law Department by Councilor Leahy, seconded by Councilor Martin. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion is referred to the Law Department for report and recommendation. Next item, 8.2, has been withdrawn by the petitioner. Next item, 8.3, on the miscellaneous, is a request by Mr. Dennis Sargentelli to address City Council regarding noise ordinance. Mr. Sargentelli?
My name's Dennis Sargentelli. I live at 59 Brad Street, Lowell. Good evening, Mayor, councilors. For 4 years, I've been trying to have the police department enforce 204, which is the old 1083 to 1092. I have a neighbor that has an illegal exhaust system. How do I know this? I'm a 20-year retired veteran from the police department. I also hold a license issued by the Registry of Motor Vehicles to inspect vehicles. I know this vehicle to have, they call a cutout, which is on a muscle car, you got your V8 engine, it comes down on both sides of your exhaust manifolds, and it's a Y pipe. You can either open it or close it, and the sound that comes out of it sounds like there's no exhaust system on the car at all. This vehicle is in the driveway 10 feet from my headboard. I've actually heard my plates, decorated plates, vibrate on the wall from the sound. It wakes us up in the morning. I actually have to get out of bed and go into the living room, put some earbuds in, put the music on to try to deaden the sound out. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. This has gone on for 4 years. I tried to get the police department, a ranking official over there that I happen to know, and he says there's nothing I can do about it. I can't put the manpower up there for Chapter 90. I don't care about Chapter 90. I'm looking forward to 204. It's on private property. Well, law enforcement, when they want to do something for private property, they get a search warrant. Search warrant, fill out an affidavit. You've got all the tools there for it. I've got the evidence that I've recorded the sound. They have the location. They know what they're going to be looking for. All they have to do is talk to me. Nobody has come and talked to me. For those 2 years, in 2012, I went to the mayor's office, and Mayor Murphy says not can do very much except maybe make a phone call over to the police station. The next night around dinner time, supervisor and a patrolman talked to the girlfriend of the individual that owns the vehicle. Oh, he only starts it up once in a while or runs it once in a while. I found this out through him 2 days later. And I says, are you going to do anything? Are you going to further investigate? No. 2012, April, I was on the agenda here to speak about 204 and what my wife and I have been going through. I happened to be out in the hallway, and that individual from the police station happened to be here about something else. I told him I was here for. He says, well, I'll assign someone in 2 days to investigate 204 and to get in touch with you and so forth. I says, well, that sounds good then. All right. We came in here, and he called the city manager, Lynch, over and told him that it's going to be worked out. And at that time, I told him, take me off the agenda to speak before the council. Well, nothing happened for 3 weeks. I haven't heard nothing. All of a sudden, I saw a traffic officer underneath the tree at the corner. I walked out of the door. He came over to me with the vehicle, and I asked him if he was here for 204 to investigate this, and he said no. I small talk with him, and then I went in the house and left. He left. After this, oh boy, let's see. Nothing was done from that on. I had to put up with it, the wife had to put up with the noise, and so forth. 2013, last year, It started out again with he puts it away for 4 months of the year. The other 8 months, it's out and it runs. And we had a very rainy last year, if you can remember, March, April, May, June, and he didn't run it that often. Come July, someone up above was watching over me. He blew the engine because he couldn't keep the vehicle running. It runs off of a carburetor, and when you need some back pressure to heat up the engine to open that automatic choke, and if it doesn't, and if you put it in drive, it'll stall out. So he has to run it. He was goosing it. Finally, he raced it a little too much, and he blew the engine. That was nice. For the rest of the year, until this year, he got another vehicle. He brought it out of storage in March, and I'm running into the same problem. I had to come to the council somehow or another, if you can help me, through the manager's office, to the police chief, only him, if we can do something. I mean, getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning because of this and trying to go back, and if you get up to make a pit stop at 5 and you look at the clock and you're saying, oh, another half hour, another 45 minutes, I'll be waking up with that sound. It's a nuisance we have to put up with. And the city ordinance says that I should be able to enjoy my property, peace of mind. Haven't been able to for 4 years. And not doing anything from the police department to help us, to me, is just refusing to enforce the city ordinance. It's a shame. Basically, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Sargentelli. Mr. Manager?
For the edification of the councilors, when Mr. Sargentelli says 204, it's chapter 204 of the ordinances relative to noise. And there is a definition of what constitutes unwarranted noise and what constitutes a violation, and also what the remedies are. So I hear you loud and clear, Mr. Sargentelli. You rest assured we will be addressing this issue commencing tomorrow morning.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. All those in favor to accept the report as a report of progress, and we'll place it on file by Councilor Belanger, seconded by Councilor Kennedy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 9, City Council motions. First motion of the night, Councilor Martin. Request City Manager have wastewater department report on recent flooding on Wentworth Ave and efforts being undertaken to avoid future occurrences. Second by Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was a really severe incident a few weeks ago, made television news, and I assume significant property damage to the residents that live down there. I was troubled to see that because I had thought in prior council actions we had appropriated some money in connection with the sewer separation projects throughout the city to address that area. And what I'm hoping is that the work hasn't been done yet, because if it has been done, it didn't really work too well. So I just wanted to hear from Mr. Young, or if somebody else is the proper party, what happened. Did we do separation work? Is other work planned and not yet complete? It was a severe rainstorm, but we've had worse storms and without similar impacts. And we used to get these spots throughout the city, and there are fewer of them since the council has appropriated money, and they've been being chipped away at one at a time. So I'd like to know where this one is in the process, what happened, if something went wrong, if it was fixed, or if something is planned in the future. So that's the motion, and appreciate feedback.
Thank you, Councilor. For discussion, Councilor Marcia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was wondering if we could look into the possibility that there's any water in that area whereby beavers may be making a dam And I know that there's laws in the books that says you can only break down the dam, I don't know, February or whatever. I don't know what the month is, but let's see if that might be a factor into the flooding there. We could just check that out. Thank you.
Make that as part of the motion. Thank you, Council. Further discussion on this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next motion of the night by Council Milonazo. Request city manager report on the frequency/method of payroll distribution for city and school department employees. Second by Council O'Rourke. Council Milonazo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I bring this motion forward as a potential cost-saving measure to be considered. So the report, if we could receive it, the frequency and method, meaning are all city and school department employees paid weekly? Are some checks mailed to employees? Again, if you look at the private sector, what some of the private sector companies have done lately, those salaried employees get paid monthly, and hourly employees typically get paid bi-weekly. So again, I'm just curious as to, number one, how we pay current school and city employees. And there may be contract issues here that I also want to acknowledge that we have to work within. But at the same time, if we could get a report as to how much it costs relative to how often, the printing of checks and so forth. And again, I think it's a potential cost-saving measure for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Madam Auditor, do you have a preliminary response? I know we have a report coming, but generally speaking?
I don't know how much it actually costs us. I do know at this point, the city employees are paid weekly. We have, over the years, looked at the bi-weekly. I'm not sure. I thought it was pretty expensive at the time, and even subbing the payments out. School department employees are paid weekly. Some of the teachers opt to be paid 42 weeks, and others can be paid for 52 weeks. Right. Let's see, what else? I think for the most part, a lot of the checks are mailed out, but even direct deposit, people get direct deposit, and those are also mailed out.
Correct.
So.
Right. So again, at 48 cents times 3,000 times 52,
Yeah.
you're talking $75,000 in mailing. The other thing that I was wondering if we could look at, because again, thinking more from the standpoint of the private sector, you can obviously get a payroll software program where you can go online and look at your pay stub. And again, it's something that, maybe in the future offering that we could actually provide for our school and city employees as well, without having to actually mail out a pay stub.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Auditor. Mr. Manager?
I was surprised to learn when I first came here that we're paid weekly, but we're this close to being paid bi-weekly, so that will be a cost savings, but we'll give you that in the report as to how close we are and what we're doing to alleviate that cost.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Councilor. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item by Councilor Mercia, requests City Council and the administration set the goal and meet the challenge to start the process of establishing a hotel in the city of Lowell in the downtown area. If there's no objection, there's another similar motion by Council Belanger. Can we take them both at once?
Yes.
Yes.
Motion to suspend and take both of them at once by Councilor Kennedy, second by Councilor Belanger. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Second item, motion by Councilor Belanger, request city manager establish a hotel initiative and work with Division of Planning and Development and UMass Lowell officials to establish potential future hotel locations. Seconded by Councilor Kennedy. We'll go to Councilor Mercia first, and then you, Councilor Belanger, if that's okay. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did think of this hotel issue for some time, but sometimes you need a little prodding, and when I read a beautiful article by Jim Campanini some time ago, I realized that he was spot on when he said that all the things that he said about a hotel in the city of Lowell. I know that UMass Lowell at the Inn and Conference Center have a dormitory / a budding hotel. I don't know how many people would want to come into the city and spend the money to be a side of a dormitory. I don't know that everybody, I know that it's 75% filled, so evidently there are people that would, and I'm not trying to put the chancellor down. I know he has representatives here who probably will report back to him what I say, but I try to speak the truth as to what I feel.
He's
And
watching you.
He's probably, well, he lives in Andover, so I don't know that he's actually watching it this evening, but the fact remains that I think missing a hotel in the area of the downtown is missing a part of the puzzle that should be with no gap there. I think it's very important where we view ourselves as a destination city, and nothing against the surrounding communities, because I know we try to work together, but there are beautiful hotels on 133 in Tewksbury, and I'm all for them getting their revenue, but I represent Lowell, I don't represent Tewksbury, and I would like to see a hotel in this area. Having said that, I know that when we had a deal with the Songus Arena, there was a portion of that property that we were promised that there would be a hotel there, and I'm not saying the promise isn't kept, but I don't know where that promise is down the line. I think that there's so much going on that maybe that's in the background. Maybe that land is going to be used for a practice rink. I don't know what the future holds in that respect, and I don't know how long we can wait. But I put out the call to set the goal and try to make that happen. Of course, we're going to look for a developer. I did receive a call from a developer who did purchase a property down by Middlesex Community College that used to be the old Chevys, that used to be the previous Dillon's Cleaners. And he did say that there would be a beautiful site that he owns to develop such a hotel. I think it's a bad idea. I think it's a very good idea. And so I would look at that possibility that if we can't, and I don't want to snap my fingers and get one tomorrow, but I don't know down the road how long we have to wait for dreams to come true. But I know that this could possibly be happening much sooner if we could all meet on the same page and discuss a hotel in the downtown. I think it's possible. I know spaces are limited, but this is a good area to develop a nice hotel with parking in the back, the Davidson parking lot. A lot of that area is designated to this particular building. I think it's a start. I think it's something to look at. I think it's a possibility, and I'm looking forward to see if we could probably look to see what can happen. If we don't dream and we don't ask, nothing's going to happen, and I think this is economic development at its best. I think if you build it, they'll come. People are coming here from the Folk Festival. There's many events that take place here, different shows taking place at the Songus Arena. I want to see people come in and stay here and enjoy our restaurants and our amenities here. I think it could be a possibility. Evidently, Councilor Belanger thinks so too, because he put a motion on as well. So I think it's something that we're going to discuss, and we should put everything that we have into making that become a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Mercier. Council Belanger, on your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I want to echo much of Councilor Mercier's comments. There is such a tremendous need for a hotel, not to mention what this city has missed in the last so many years regarding conventions, events, because we do not have a hotel. Feel free to reach out to Deb Belanger at Convention and Visitors Bureau. It is very, very frustrating to her, and it's frustrating to me to hear that we lose tourist dollars in convention. And those monies have been out of the equation, as I said in the newspaper, a long, long time now. and it's about time we take steps to correct this matter. It's almost like we're a laughingstock. We call ourselves a destination city, and we don't have a hotel. It's just unthinkable, quite frankly. I don't pretend it's an easy task at the same time. We had a hotel, virtually every outfit, whether it was DoubleTree or the Hilton, that hotel was a loss leader. It was difficult, it changed hands frequently, and it's probably in the best hands right now, quite frankly. It was too large. It was heavily dependent on Wang Laboratories. That sector kind of crashed in the late 80s, early 90s. That fell by the wayside. It was far too large a hotel for the city's needs, having about 250 approximate rooms, where the ICC, after the dormitories, has about 30, 31 rooms, which is far too small to host any kind of event. It's almost insignificant, and that's not putting the university down. We know they're doing what they can. But this is not the university's problem. This is our problem, and we cannot expect them. Yes, there's a parcel that abuts the arena that might be, we have university officials still here. I assume they're still here to chime in on this. But it's not up to them. We can't put it on them at the same time. This is up to us. We owe it to the businesses and the residents and the visitors that want to come into town and have nowhere to stay. So this is our responsibility, I'll say it again, and we need to take steps to correct it. If it happens with that university parcel, then that's great. I also received a transmission from the same developer who's very interested in building a hotel. But I think we should go as far as to offer a tax break on a hotel. It is a very, very risky investment. And obviously, they're not battering down the door to come into Lowell to build a hotel. We've been without one for some time. So we need to make it attractive and set up this new hotel for success. So this council and the city needs to do all it can. This is an extremely important piece that will mean so much. It will have such a domino effect for businesses that it's a priority in my mind. So, I look forward to put it on the manager to work with the university officials and planning and development. Let's identify a few parcels throughout the city where this could work. And I think we should, I'm only one vote out of 9 here, but I think we should go as far as offer a TIF on this to make it an extremely risky, I'll say it again, proposition, where very few are going to undertake it. So we need to do what we need to do here, quite frankly, and it involves drastic measures. That's how important I think this motion is, and it's very, very important we get this done. So I think we are at least have 2 councilors in agreement on this, so I look forward to future progress, Mr. Manager. We put it in your hands to create initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion on the motions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion's carry. Next motion by Councilor Mercia. Request city manager have proper department find ways and means to locate a spot, specifically in the Highlands section, to be designated in honor of William J. Sullivan. Seconded by Councilor Martin. Councilor Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This motion is specifically designed for a war hero who deserves recognition for his heroics, and at the request of a Gold Star mother who requested that I propose this motion, here it is. William J. Sullivan enlisted in the Army on February 12th of 1941 and joined Troop B of the 87th Cavalry Reconnaissance Squadron, 7th Armored Division. He was a captain in the United States Army and a veteran of World War II. He returned home in a full body cast. He received the Bronze Star Medal, the Purple Heart, the European, African, Middle Eastern Service Medal, the American Service Medal, and the Victory Medal. He was honorably discharged on March 24, 1946. On August of 1945, a tremendous article in the Reader's Digest appeared to highlight the heroics of Captain Sullivan as one of the members of the team who was ordered to advance in his reconnaissance troop beyond the American lines to find the Russians. The article was the banner headline article for that month's issue and was featured at the top of the Reader's Digest front cover. I believe as the person that asked me to present this motion, and I believe there might be something that we can do to help this family. I think there's one daughter left in the city of Lowell, but someone asked me, a Gold Star mother, if I would present this on her behalf, and that's what I'm doing. Thank
It is.
you.
Thank you, Councilor Marcia. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next motion of the night, 9.6. Councilor Rourke requests city manager have police department provide a list to councilors of all current and future precinct sites that fall in line with the reorganization of the department. Seconded by Councilor Samaras. Councilor Rourke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion basically speaks for itself. I have had conversation with the superintendent concerning his ideas that fall along with the Lowell's reorganization plan for the police department, and he gladly will furnish that list to us by next week's meeting. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Next, Councilor Lay, can you take the chair very briefly? The motion speaks for itself, but I have a couple of.
Next motion of the night from Mayor Elliott, requests city manager address clothing donation boxes that have become locations for illegal dumping.
Second.
Thank you. Mayor Elliott.
Thank you. I actually received a communication from Mr. Willett since I filed the motion. He does track these things. We received email from neighborhood leader Taya Dixon Mullane. And I agree, not only on the Chelmsford Street location, but there are various boxes. In fact, I know the council has had a discussion on this in the past. And while it's not the operators, if you will, of the Planet Aid or the other donation boxes, they do become nuisances, and they become locations for illegal dumping areas. There's one, there's clearly one. I know they're all over the city. So a suggestion that was made, and Mr. Willett does contact them, and cameras are put on some of them on a regular schedule. He's even ticketed this one particular organization, and they finally had their own cameras installed. So the biggest problem was on Chelmsford Street, and now they have to pick up every 7 days and be in compliance, or if they're not, then they will be removed. But he had a suggestion also that they be placed on private property and a minimum of 10 feet from the sidewalk with the doors facing the property, so people can't go by and just place item in the box. So I don't want to belabor the issue. I know it's it's a problem in several items throughout the city. It is a worthy it's a worthy cause, and we all use it and donate clothes. But in some neighborhoods, it becomes a problem. So I don't want to see them go away, but we've got to try to take some action so they won't be used as illegal dumps. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I think it's a good motion. I think we all received emails from neighborhood group leaders saying, these things turn out to be a mess. We know the intent is good, and that's great. I'm not saying they need to go, but we need to tighten up on this for sure. They're for clothes, for people in need. They're not a dump site for TVs and mattresses and other items, and that's what's going on here for the most part. It's very unsightly. We need better signage, better restrictions, so let's take a look at this for the building department and revamp it and to clean these neighborhoods up where these things lie. So I do support it. Thank you very much.
Any further discussion? Before we adjourn, can I just ask the manager if you could check on the city website, the subcommittees? I don't know if that's us or the manager, but needs to be updated. Still has last year's council names on there.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. I've sent, I believe it's the clerk in conjunction with MIS. I hear you. I
Okay.
agree. It needs to be updated, and we've sent,
Thank
I know
you.
Celine has sent a number of requests, so,
Okay.
okay.
Okay. So motion to adjourn by Counselor Kennedy, second by Counselor Martin. Thank you.